and is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. That's right, my friends. It's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. How you guys doing today? Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. Happy Thursday, yes. We've got lots to discuss. Two of the most controversial trials of the modern age. The trial of Tyler Robinson and the murder of Charlie Kirk, and the trial of Brian Cole Jr., the alleged pipe bomber from January 6th, are both ongoing right now. We will be discussing both of them at different points during the show. We are also, of course, going to be leaning heavily on exposing fraud, discussing the illegal alien problem, and, as you can see, the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has apparently decided it's a good idea to bite the hand that feeds her. I can only hope that President Trump, the administration, and the Department of Justice are going to respond in kind. So if you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show, and then, of course, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to be right back after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me say thank you very much to Trump1 over there on Pilled. Thank you for everything. Love always. Thank you so much for being here. Also, thank you to Principled Enigma. Anybody notice Trump wearing a gold tie at the NATO meeting? He stood out like a gold spire, and I think that was the point. Oh, and one more thing. May God bless this broadcast. Thank you, sir. Yes, I did notice that. And BDR1776 says, so happy to get to the show on time today. Let's start a $5 best news out there. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And everybody else, thank you for being here once again. If you haven't yet, please do me a favor, hit that like button. That would be awesome. And let us begin, first of all, by discussing the situation, the beginning of Brian Cole Jr.'s trial. This is actually the status hearing. Now, the thing that immediately stood out was that Brian Cole Jr. does not have the same body or build, and most likely not even the same gait, as the person who is filmed throughout Washington, D.C., making their way around on January 5th and then, of course, early January 6th. Tension filled the E. Barrett Pettyman U.S. District Court yesterday as Brian Cole Jr. prepared for his status hearing in this high-stakes case. They are obviously accusing him of planting pipe bombs outside of both the Democratic and Republican National Committee headquarters on January 5th. Now, the Justice Department has charged Cole with these 2 counts of possession of an unregistered destructive device, also 1 count of maliciously damaging or destroying property by means of an explosive. And of course, if he gets convicted on all these counts and sentenced consecutively, he might be facing up to 30 years in federal prison. So earlier this week, July 6th, District Judge Amir Ali, who is an appointee of Joseph Biden, ruled that President Trump's sweeping January 6 pardons do not apply to Brian Cole. Why is that? Well, it's because he was charged after the events covered by the pardon language. And of course, the pardon language only goes so far as to cover people who committed acts on January 6th. Very importantly, the placing of these pipe bombs was on January 5th. Now, what happened in this hearing may be what shapes the entire public view of the January 6th investigation. Probably one of the most significant rulings from this day. Judge Ali ordered that there will be no redactions of materials referencing the Capitol Police's role on January 6th. You've got a large volume of filings which are now going to be publicly disclosed. That's a good thing for anybody hoping to find information that they haven't seen before, or perhaps that hasn't been disclosed, or, of course, has been held back for whatever reason. This opens the floodgates to evidence that has been hidden for years at this point. Now, from the very moment Brian Cole entered the courtroom, that physical appearance was very difficult to dismiss. Cole's head size, his torso length, the proportions of his legs, and most notably his feet. If you'll remember the videos of the January 6th bomber, they paid special attention to those feet because the shoes were so unusual. All of them stood in stark contrast to that suspect that was captured on surveillance footage and has been identified by the government since the very beginning as the pipe bomber. If you'll remember, investigative journalist Steve Baker has repeatedly reported Cole, the man who is now charged, wears a size 12 shoe. But the forensic analysis of that video indicates that the bomber was approximately a size 9. Now, that is small for a man, and it's certainly small for a man of Brian Cole's stature. And as has repeatedly been said by his family and others, Brian Cole is an autistic young man. He lives with his parents. He's been described by whistleblowers for the FBI, many of whom have bad feelings about the FBI because of the way they left and, of course, their whistleblowing activities. But many of them have described him as somebody who has been targeted deliberately, and that he may be some type of a sacrificial lamb, if you will, so that the federal authorities can just get this case wrapped up. I think that would be the worst possible reason to try to solve this case. Now, Thomas Massey has suggested that the government has gone after the wrong man, while a former Capitol Police officer, we have spoken about her before, who is now also an employee of the Central Intelligence Agency, go figure, somebody who has in the past been a person of interest in this case, someone who also failed a polygraph, remains protected. Now, I think that the reason that person's name is not mentioned in this article is because there is currently an ongoing series of cases against people who have identified her in the past. Now, on screen, you can see Brian Cole Jr.'s family. They are obviously distraught. During the course of this status hearing, they sat silent in the courtroom. Their faces obviously seem to be riddled with exhaustion and stress after the months of dealing with their family member now being accused and paraded around by the federal government. Outside the courthouse, they did, however, read a brief statement that they had prepared previously, read it to reporters, but they were asked questions and they declined to answer anything further on the advice of counsel. And of course, this is a big moment, not only for Brian, but for everyone in his family. They are obviously fighting for his life and for the future of someone that they love dearly. I believe we have a video of that. We're going to go ahead and watch it very briefly.
Have you started running your air conditioner
after I get past
yet?
this.
I'm going to
The format on this video is very strange. Hold on. Why can't... Let me just go straight to Rumble if it will allow me to. No, it will not allow me to. Okay.
Hello. My name is Delisha Cole. I'm Brian's mom, and I just wanted to speak out for our family because we love Brian. And
for anybody who's wondering, I mute everything while the commercial is going because I can't skip it until I get to a certain point, and then I come back and I unmute it.
Today was great to actually see him again in the flesh, and I prepared something that I'm going to read. So, as Brian's family, we continue to be deeply concerned about the fairness of this trial. We want to make sure he's truly receiving the fairness, neutrality, and full consideration he deserves. With every ruling, it becomes more difficult to understand what feels like an imbalance to us in this case, while Brian's life, freedom, and future hangs in the balance. Monday's decision was very heartbreaking. It appears largely adopted on the government's position with little or additional explanation. We can't help but to question how the government can continue to change its position when it serves its case better. One interpretation no longer fits, another seems to take its place. As a mother, it's devastating to watch my son's future depending on shifting interpretations while he continues to fight to be heard. It's also devastating when we talk to him every day to hear his devastation. I'll put it that way. Brian has not pleaded guilty. He is not a conviction. He is not a headline. He is my son, our family member. Yet time and time again, he is treated though these allegations are already proven instead of being tested through a fair and impartial process. We'll never stop fighting for Brian. We'll never stop believing in Brian. We'll never question his innocence, and we will never stop praying that one day he receives the fair consideration he deserves. No mother should have to watch her child's future decided before it's truly heard. Thank you.
Would you support Brian taking a plea deal?
I can't answer that at this time. That's for him and his attorneys to answer.
What have the past 6 months been like for your? Oh,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
All right, so we also have another rant from BDR, and this is an excellent question, and it's actually something that I plan to address here in just a moment. So let me say, what is the point of this op of saying it was Cole? Do we still have bad people in the FBI? I mean, Dan and Cash both said it was Cole. So first of all, what is the point? Well, I can only believe that it's because of the second part of your question. Undoubtedly, yes, there are still bad people at the FBI and the DOJ. Dan and Cash were like the highest level people at the FBI. Dan and Cash themselves did not do the investigation of Brian Cole Jr. as the potential bomber on January 6th. Dan and Cash were handed a file that was prepared by people at the FBI and the DOJ, which made the case for Brian Cole to be the pipe bomber. Now, there are two things that may be possible. Either Brian Cole Jr. is the pipe bomber or Brian Cole Jr. is not the pipe bomber. Based upon everything I've seen so far, I don't believe that Brian Cole Jr. is the pipe bomber. Now, Dan and Cash are only going to be making their value judgment based upon the information that they're given. So because of that, I'm not particularly surprised that they believe that Brian Cole Jr. is the bomber. If there are people in the government who wholeheartedly believe that Brian Cole Jr. is the bomber, then they're going to find whatever information is possible to support that assertion. And of course, the government is going to make their case. It wouldn't be the first time in the history of the United States that good people have made the wrong call and have convicted people who were not guilty. Up to this point, Brian has not been convicted. But Steve Baker, I think, has been probably one of the best investigative journalists in this story. And I know that there are a lot of people who have complicated feelings about him. Either they like him or they don't like him. I don't know him personally, so I've got no dog in this hunt other than to say I want the right person to be convicted. But Steve Baker has been investigating this for quite some time, and it's undeniable that he lost his job as a result of the investigative leads that he started following. And of course, they turned things around and they started to go after him. But the person of interest that he has identified, her name is Shawnee. I'm not going to say her full name because I don't want to get sued either. She's actually suing him. She's also suing Blaze Media for defamation, and she is using a really high-powered law firm. I think that it's highly suspicious, the things that have been brought up regarding her proximity to this event. And then also, of course, the fact that she ended up working at the Central Intelligence Agency. Undoubtedly, there are bad people at the Central Intelligence Agency. And undoubtedly, those people would have the power to place certain pieces of evidence that would make it appear as if it's anybody but this person that Steve Baker had identified. But this outfit that is representing her is the same law firm that secured the nearly $1 billion settlement against Fox News on behalf of Dominion Voting Systems. Either they're really, really good lawyers, or they have just about as much money behind them as is necessary to prove anything they want to prove. So the pressure from that lawsuit is what forced Baker out of Blaze Media. And he's now got his own independent site, Veritas Regnant, I think you pronounce it that way. And he believes wholeheartedly that he is correct. The other thing that I can tell you is that some of the people that Baker has worked with on this story, specifically one person who was well-placed within the U.S. government, died in the midst of this investigation and died suspiciously. Steve Baker himself also had a massive heart attack, almost died himself during the midst of this investigation. From what I know about the Central Intelligence Agency, they've got the ability to kill people if they want to kill people. In fact, they're highly skilled at it. Now, just because there are bad people at the CIA or the FBI or the DOJ, in my mind, it does not represent the entirety of the administration or even the people that are sitting at the top of the administration. Bureaucracy is the enemy of truth, as far as I'm concerned. And unfortunately, the United States and the federal government is entirely comprised of a series of bureaucracies. So this is a very, very important case. And I think that now that the judge has unsealed all Capitol Police-related materials, this could back up some of the reporting that Steve Baker has brought in the past. It also could be very, very good for Brian Cole Jr. Of course, the next status conference for Cole is going to be scheduled for September 10th. His trial is tentatively scheduled for February of next year. February 20th is when it is now scheduled to begin, and it's expected to be about 2 weeks. Now, we don't know whether it's going to be a jury trial. We don't know if it's going to be a bench trial. Bench trial is when it's just the judge. Jury trial, obviously, they have a jury, but it's in an interesting district, that's for sure. The case is being prosecuted by Jocelyn Ballantyne. She's actually the same prosecutor who led the high-profile seditious conspiracy prosecutions against the Proud Boys. And that also tells me that she's a bad person because those seditious conspiracy charges against the Proud Boys were totally trumped up, did not even happen in the way that she presented it. And that team of prosecutors working for Jocelyn Ballantyne are the ones who pressured Enrique Tarrio to implicate President Trump in exchange for leniency. They told him that he could get out of prison and he would never spend any time in jail as long as he just said that President Trump had basically told him to end up going to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. They also threatened his life. So yes, to answer your question, BDR 1776, there's a lot of bad people still highly placed within the Department of Justice. Now, this courthouse, let's talk about that. It's the same venue where you had more than 1,600 everyday Americans charged from January 6th. They were prosecuted for their involvement in the protests, and I think that we can all safely say that damn near the majority of those people did nothing at all. This is the largest number of defendants in any single protest event in the history of the United States of America, and every single one of those proceedings was a kangaroo court. It was stacked against them from the very beginning. This is the same group of people that went through jury rooms and jury pools that were pulled from the same small group of Democrat loyalists and deep state adherents. This was completely improper, and for every single one of those trials, those people should have been transferred to different jurisdictions. And Jocelyn Ballantyne also not only threatened Enrique Tarrio and others with those seditious conspiracy charges, but she also threatened a good number of the other January 6th defendants into taking plea deals, and they also tried to convince those people to say bad things about President Trump so that they could get leniency. This courthouse also sits directly across the street from Congress, and there is pretty much no oversight over the D.C. federal court. As I have said on so many occasions, I think that the D.C. federal court needs to be abolished. It is just too small of a location to have its own federal court, and it means that you have problems like what we've discussed. You have judges with basically no oversight. You have jury pools that are consistently tainted. You have jurors that are going to be pulled from people working within the federal government. And I think everybody here would agree that the federal government still has plenty of deep staters working there, either working in the federal government or placed as aides within Congress, or working in D.C. as lobbyists, or people who are representing foreign agencies and foreign governments. There is just so much corruption. And as far as we have come, the amount of distance that we have yet to go is almost unfathomable. As I've said on so many occasions, you guys, this is a multi-generational battle that we are fighting. We may win a battle or two, but we have not yet won the war. It is going to take some time. B4U2C says, I found proof of life from Mitch. I can't pull that up because it's Threads, but unfortunately, that's not going to let me pull that up. B4U2C, could you maybe screenshot that and email it to me or something? Or anybody that has Threads here, can you do that? So regardless, I need to say thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Unchained One for 1, 2, 3 cookies. And then Sean Joe, thank you for a can as well. All right. You guys remember a couple of days ago when I read that fake tweet from a Representative Jack Kimball? Representative Jack Kimball said that he had spoken with Mitch McConnell for about 45 minutes. He's so sharp. He just always lets me do all the talking. He's a great listener. After that, we prayed silently for a while and held a staring contest. And just like always, he beat me. I told him we want to see him back at work as soon as possible. One of the funniest things that I have seen on social media in quite a while. Now, I knew it was fake when I was bringing it to you guys. I wanted it to be a joke. But the problem is CNN read it on air as if it was real. I mean, come on, guys. You live and work in Washington, D.C. You are allegedly journalists. Have you ever heard of a Representative Jack Kimball? Could you have looked on the congressional website to see if a real Representative Jack Kimball had been elected anywhere at any time in the history of the United States? Well, the answer is yes, and of course they did not. CNN tried to prove that Mitch McConnell is fine by reading this very same tweet from a congressman who doesn't even exist. My goodness, hilarious. You really can't make this stuff up. And here you can see they included. They've got the leader, Speaker Thune's tweet. They've got Senate GOP whip John Barrasso's tweet. They've got the Scott Jennings tweet. And they've got the Representative Jack Kimball tweet right on screen. They are never going to live this down. Absolute morons. Total idiots. But you know what? I'm here for it, guys. It's one of the reasons I show up every day. Oh, man. Also, wanted to give a big shout out to Remove All Incumbents at Jagic Man. Tell me if I said that correctly, but he tweeted at me and tagged me on X. He said, "Hey, bro, we are the Florida Firefighters Pipes and Drums. They were scheduled to be in the D.C. parade for the 4th of July over this past weekend." And he said the parade was canceled, so we marched to the Capitol and we met Brian Mast. Pretty sweet. Thought you would enjoy this since you're a fellow Florida guy. I'm from Jacksonville at Red Pill 78. All right, there you go. And here they are inside the Capitol. Florida Firefighters Pipes and Drums. That is pretty sweet. How cool that you guys got a chance to be there. Here they are marching down the street as well.
Straighten your ego out. Turn it to the right. There you go. John, you can tell us about the uphill, man.
I'm hoping we're going to hear some bagpipes. Pretty sweet. So I don't know anything else about the organization. I think somebody said something smart about firemen going to D.C. and playing drums. I would imagine that none of these men or women left their location in Florida unable to successfully fight a fire in their absence. So very cool. Glad that you guys were able to go, and I hope that you had a great time at the fireworks. All right. Now, I wanted to recognize them because we also need to call somebody else out. And this was something that I had seen posted by a number of accounts, but I wanted to share the take from Blue Lives Matter because it's exclusively a pro-police account. Now, I've actually gotten some shit from people before for even ever saying anything positive about police officers because there are some people who just think that anybody in uniform is a fascist, basically. And I know that that's not the case. I've known good cops in my life, and I've known bad cops in my life. It's just like anything. You can find good podcasters, you can find bad podcasters. You can find good politicians, you can find bad politicians. You can find good cops, you can find bad cops. Well, this is unfortunately an example of bad police work. What this is a former federal agent and now a street preacher standing on the street and preaching the word of God. And he was approached first by this female officer who threatened to cite him if he said something that offended people. After that, some additional pieces of footage came out which showed one of her partners also threatening him. and then also what appears to be the police supervisor for this area. This is all in Fort Worth, not Dallas Fort Worth. That's the airport. But yeah, this was really upsetting. And the reason I like that Blue Lives Matter called it out is because although they like to say positive things about police when it's appropriate, they're not afraid to call out bad police work. And I think that you have to be willing to do that. If you're going to give recognition, you've also got to be able to give criticism. And so they say, on behalf of the largest police news outlet in the world, we are officially calling for the resignation or termination of this officer immediately. And I would imagine that it would also stand for the other two officers involved. A female Fort Worth police officer was caught on camera threatening to ticket a retired federal law enforcement officer and Christian street preacher for offensive speech. And there is no such thing as offensive speech. What she was doing was a clear violation of his First Amendment rights. So he probably will have a fairly solid civil rights case on his hands now. The officer told the man that if someone is offended by his preaching, then we have a problem. And she said she would issue him a ticket. When he asked if she was really going to issue him a ticket for offensive speech, she replied, "Yes, I am." Well, obviously, that's a blatant amendment violation, and police officers do not have the authority to ticket people for speech that may offend other people. If you are offended by somebody, then you need to go, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's the exact opposite of how freedom of speech works in America. Hopefully, this is going to be a teachable moment for the officers that are involved here, because they are quite literally getting lit up online. But the fact that this officer has targeted this man, not only a preacher, but a retired federal law enforcement officer, simply for preaching the word of God on a street corner, is wholly unacceptable. Departments that employ officers who openly disregard the Constitution need to clean house. This is universal across the board. This kind of behavior is what leads people to distrust police. This is what leads people to believe that they simply cannot have a good interaction with a police officer. And for the good police officers, it obviously makes their jobs harder. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to show you a brief sampling of each of these interactions.
That ordinance means like music, not talking. If someone is offended by your talking, then we have a problem.
That is a constitutional violation of our rights. If you shut us down,
no, if they are offended by your speech, okay, then I'll write you the ticket and then we'll go from there.
Oh, man, it's really distressing that somebody could be a police officer and be so stupid, so uninformed about what the rights are of citizens. Now, here is another interaction with the same man. He's actually on Twitter, Rich Penkoski. He's a preacher, WFC preacher on X. And this is another officer who is just as stupid, just as uninformed about what it means to be an American.
To be where you want to be.
Well, can you tell her, too, that she can't cite us for speech is offensive, because she threatened to cite us if we have offensive speech?
It depends on what you're saying, who's offended.
So if I say homosexuality...
Yes, sir, it does. So free speech does not include the...
no threats.
Hey, if you make fun of somebody, if you call them certain words and they feel offended by that, unfortunately, that is the part of the...
So if I call somebody, and I'm just saying this for clarification, if I say you're a faggot and they get offended, you're going to cite me?
That is a Class C ticket, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay, no, that's not illegal. That's absolutely 100% not illegal. It doesn't matter who is offended by the speech. This has been well established in history, precedent, legislation, and in judicial rulings. Here we have, again, the police supervisor who comes, and it looks like he's being brought in by the Rainbow Brigade to tell this man that his speech is so offensive he should be arrested.
Hello, officer. My name is David Grisham, and in Grisham versus Fort Worth, 2014-15 was settled out of court with the city of Fort Worth. We settled on this exact dispute. And the settlement was that I could preach anywhere on a public street that's free and open to the public in downtown Fort Worth. Okay, that's on Grisham versus Fort Worth.
But you're not downtown.
This is downtown.
This is a closed event to whoever they decide they don't want anybody in here, but they have a permit. So if you want to preach, you will have to be outside the barricades.
Yeah, so what's even worse is that This man already knows his stuff. Not only does he have a firm grasp on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, there is also a court case giving him the precedence to be here on the streets and preaching the word of God. So, it remains to be seen what's going to happen to each of these officers. But at a minimum, they need to be suspended, and perhaps they need to simply be fired, because if I had to guess, I'm going to say that Fort Worth is probably going to have to pay out yet another settlement. And this man, his rights are even more going to be solidified. Man. All right. Now, I don't know if you remember this account that I've shown previously, Juicy Star 1908, but she has done quite a bit of work to expose the abuses of the immigration system here in the United States. And she's actually got real connections within the State Department and DHS. And I just saw this as I was getting ready, but she said, I've heard from a very reliable source that the announcement made yesterday, the H-1B investigation that we were talking about, is only part of the picture, and I certainly hope that that was going to be the case. But she says other departments and agencies are also joining in on investigating all aspects of H-1B visa fraud. They include both the State Department and USCIS. She's got another very reliable source that has said that they are looking into getting a 3-letter agency involved to make H-1B visa fraud investigations a revenue opportunity. I'm hoping that that means that we, the people, can begin taking part in these investigations, and then perhaps we can be paid for our efforts. But after all, if they don't declare their rental properties on their visa applications, they may not declare them on other government forms. Now, what her research has gone into has been the exposure of H-1B visa holders coming in and purchasing homes and then renting out those homes. That is not something that you can do when you are an H-1B visa holder. And then, of course, we also have the banks, the credit unions, the financial institutions that are lending money to these H-1B visa holders for illegal purposes. So perhaps we are going to have investigations looking into their finances, which are going to lead us to even more instances of H-1B visa fraud from a whole new perspective. I can't wait to see where this one goes. Now, also, good look, Secretary of Homeland Security Mark Wayne Mullen has confirmed once again, they've done this a couple of different times through different vectors of the administration, that they are working on a method to end birthright citizenship because the court got it wrong. Let's go ahead and hear from Secretary Mullen.
This was one that he had the executive order he didn't want. If you're born here and your parents are illegal, he didn't want you to be a citizen, but the Supreme Court upheld that.
Well, I think the president was spot on this, and the court is absolutely dead wrong on this situation. If you look at the reason for the 14th Amendment, again, this is way outside what has happened, especially with China and their tourist visas that they get to come into the United States or into our territories just simply to give birth. They'll come in the 8th month, maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks left, give birth here, have a child, then they move back to China, raise a person underneath the communist regime, even though they're a citizen of the United States, and they come back over here. And in some cases, we see that they go to their universities, they're stealing intellectual property, and it's absolutely been a national security issue. This is truly a national security risk that we're having. But we're re-looking at it. We had a long conversation with the White House yesterday, a long conversation with the president, Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, all of us together are working and saying, okay, how can we protect America and still at the same time, unfortunately, figure out how to work with the court in this situation.
All right. So also over there on YouTube, I see Squirrel Feet. Is it Squirrel Feet? Yeah, Squirrel Feet says it's not stupidity, it's intentional. We have it in the UK, leftist police. You do, you definitely do, and we also do here in the United States. But the fundamental difference between here in the US and in the UK is that your government has actually made it illegal to say things that you would otherwise be able to say here in the United States. Even if those people believe that you shouldn't be able to say that here in the U.S., as it would appear the police do in the U.K., in the UK, it's actually been made a crime. It has not been made a crime. And hate speech, although there are rules surrounding certain types of speech directed at certain protected peoples, those things would be illegal because they would be considered threats. That is wrong also. That is a violation, in my opinion, of the First Amendment. I'm hoping that will be something that is addressed. But we are looking for some type of effort coming from the federal government. We don't exactly know how that's going to go. That could easily be done through legislation. We've already discussed that. But, of course, we also have President Trump's efforts to take this case back before the Supreme Court. Now, this is a little known, not very well used action that the federal government can take. And Chris Ann Hall, who is a constitutional scholar, she's been a guest on the show before. She's brilliant. If you guys don't know her, then I would suggest you look into her because she knows her stuff. Now, she says, here is the whole truth about this SCOTUS rehearing. The Supreme Court has a power most people have never heard about. It is the power to reconsider its own decisions. So petitions for rehearing at the Supreme Court are among the rarest procedural events in American law. After the SCOTUS issues a decision, the losing party may file a petition for rehearing under Rule 44 within 25 days. This is not another appeal. It is a request that the court reconsider its own judgment before it becomes final, and the court almost always denies these petitions. The history of rehearing shows something important. The court does not reopen cases simply because they're controversial, politically important, or have enormous consequences. In one of these cases, Lawrence versus Chater from 1996, the Supreme Court demonstrated that rehearing is a real, though rarely used, power. After issuing its decision, the court granted the rehearing, they vacated their earlier judgment, and they issued a new opinion. The court never explained why it chose to reconsider, but the case shows that when the court determines further review is warranted, it has the authority to correct or clarify its own work. Now compare that with Steel Seizure case, Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer from 1952. During the Korean War, President Harry Truman ordered the federal government to seize the nation's steel mills. The Supreme Court held the president did not have that constitutional authority, and the United States asked the court to rehear the case. Well, in that instance, the court refused. And that refusal is just as important as the decision itself. This was a case involving war, presidential power, national security, and enormous public consequences. Yet the court did not reopen it simply because the stakes were high. The court has the power to reconsider itself, but it does not do so because of pressure, politics, popularity, or even issues perceived of great importance or impact. It does so only in the rarest circumstances when SCOTUS decides court's own decision-making process requires another look. Now, from what I understand, in order to have the SCOTUS rehear this case, it requires at least one person from the court to agree that it needs to be reheard. Now, of course, we have nearly half the court who believed that the majority should have ruled in the opposite direction. So I think it may be likely that we're going to get a rehearing. But I'm also hoping that some of the things that have happened since that case was decided, it will likely change the idea or change the mind of just one person on the court, because literally that is all that it's going to take. Don't know how any of the justices are feeling after what we've seen in recent days. We are going to check back in with a couple of things we talked about yesterday, but first I thought that maybe it would be prudent to talk about the election aspect of it, because I think ultimately this is what's most important, and we may get more information from the public and from authorities before we actually get the decision to rehear made by SCOTUS. Now, Peter Bernegger, another brilliant mind who's been focusing on election security and election integrity for a long time, also being a guest on the program, he shows this invoice right here. And he says, you must see Vice President J.D. Vance's remarks at 1 minute and 40 seconds in the video that he shares below, speaking about election fraud in Milwaukee and the mayor of the city of Milwaukee. That's where J.D. Vance was yesterday, and he did have some pretty stunning statements to make on it. It was Mayor Cavalier Johnson who said, and paraphrasing, we don't even have the printers to print those blank ballots with candidate names printed on those ballots, but the oval circles not filled in. Peter Bernegger obviously has the goods on this. We've got the sauce right here. He says, really, Mayor Johnson? Well, how come I have invoices for 2 on-demand ballot printing systems then. And then he tags J.D. Vance, President Trump, and the mayor. And you can see here, the city of Milwaukee purchased from Chicago ES&S election systems printers, which would allow them to do what the mayor of Milwaukee claims they can't do. So with that in mind, let's take a listen to J.D. Vance commenting on election security in the city of Milwaukee, because methinks the lady doth protest too much.
I did get the letter from the mayor of Milwaukee, and he wants to meet, and he's welcome to come to Washington, D.C. I'll sit down and meet with him. We don't have time to meet with him today because we got to get back to Washington, but I'm happy to meet with him. I will say it was a little bit of he doth protest too much. Because I came here to talk about financial fraud. I came here to talk about the fraud against our prenatal program for our young moms. And some guy sends me a letter, the mayor of Milwaukee, and says, we don't do any election fraud, we don't do any election fraud, we don't do any election fraud. And my response to that is, you know what, it kind of reminds me of like a couple weeks ago, I get home to the Naval Observatory, the nicest public housing anywhere in the United States of America, and my 6-year-old greets me, and I love my little boy, but he's a little mischievous, and he gives me a big hug. He says, Daddy, I'm glad you're home. I didn't steal any of the cookies. I said, that's interesting that you volunteered that when I wasn't even talking about that. Well, of course, he stole the cookies. So when I hear a guy protesting out of nowhere, I did not do any election fraud, I did not do any election fraud, it makes me wonder, why is that guy protesting so aggressively? It's a little odd.
So, yeah, J.D. Vance didn't even mention election fraud to the mayor of Milwaukee, and he wanted to be very clear, make sure J.D. knew that there was no election fraud there. J.D. only sent him a letter asking about Medicare fraud and medical fraud. So, of course, now they're going to need to look into the situation surrounding election fraud in Milwaukee. Now, I saw somebody in the chat clarify something that I had said. I said that all it requires is one justice from the court. It's specifically one justice from the majority on that original decision that needs to agree to the rehearing. Now, I think that that is possible because you had Justice Kavanaugh both concur and dissent in part. Kavanaugh was the one who basically laid out the roadwork for how this could be fixed legislatively. But when we have so many people who are coming here illegally and then voting, so many people who are coming here and having babies and just doing it so that they can overthrow the country, maybe we can reach Justice Kavanaugh. Now, I'm going to play this video in its entirety because I think that it deserves to be heard. This is the latest video posted last night from Spencer Pratt about election fraud and about his election specifically in Los Angeles. Now, I think we've reached a real turning point here because the idea of election fraud and our elections being largely fake and gay is no longer just a conservative talking point. Because the election seems to have been stolen from Spencer Pratt in Los Angeles, you have a lot of people who would consider themselves to not be Republicans, people who would consider themselves to be Democrats, people who, after seeing what happened to Spencer Pratt, believe that there's no way this election was not stolen. So sit back and get ready because this is a long video, but I think it's well worth your time. Let me say thank you to B4U2C, the best I can do for you, Zach. It's a Rumble short. I can definitely do that. Let me play this first. I saw this yesterday. Oh man, there's no sound. Hold on. I saw this yesterday on X and I almost played it, but I never got to it. Mitch McConnell, proof of life. Surter says if the Rainbow Brigade called the cops on that preacher for obvious bullshit reasons, can't they be held accountable for making a false police report? I mean, what do you think the chances of that happening are if the cops think that this guy can be cited for just simply preaching the word of God? Principal Enigma says, regarding the rogue cops, they were obviously city cops. City cops do not swear an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution. Correct. They were not sheriffs. They were just regular city cops. Only federal, state, and county uphold the Constitution. Yeah, but they still have to uphold the law, and the law is freedom of speech here in the United States. All right, let's go ahead and hear this from Spencer.
In judicial ethics, the mere appearance of potential fraud is disqualifying. Same goes here. Whether or not there is widespread fraud occurring, there certainly could be, and it doesn't matter how many times you scream, there's no widespread fraud. A lot of people believe there is, and there's no way to actually validate it. This isn't just about whether or not fraud is swinging the election. The appearance of fraud already is swinging the election. People rightly have zero faith in this janky, inefficient system. They feel like their vote isn't being counted. They feel like illegal ballots are being cast, and they're not wrong to worry about it. There's literally no safeguards in place to prevent that from happening, and way too many openings for it to occur on a massive scale. You all saw how it was neck and neck with Karen Basura on election night, nearly double digits ahead of Nithya, just as the polling predicted.
Rahman fighting tears on election night, trailing Spencer Pratt by roughly 40,000 votes and about 10 percentage points.
I dominated the in-person vote. I smashed Nithya on the mail-in ballots too. She was crying on election night. It was over. Then a few days later, suddenly Nithya started overperforming as they continued to accept ballots 7 days after the election.
But days of county mail-in ballots have changed the map.
I'm so grateful.
Rahman has now erased a 40,000 vote deficit and moved ahead of Pratt by roughly 3,000 votes, a net swing of more than 43,000 votes.
43,000 votes, which just happens to be the exact number of homeless people on the streets in LA. They assured everyone that this is normal because for some reason that they can't explain, Democrats overwhelmingly vote by mail.
There's a historical phenomenon in national voting called the Red Mirage.
The Red Mirage.
What we were calling a Red Mirage.
The Red Mirage.
Red Mirage. Yeah. This term was coined because about some swing states count votes, usually favoring Republicans early. Then it becomes an advantage for Democrats later in the evening and then into the next morning.
You expect to see the Republican with a lead, but it's not really a lead.
Democrats vote in higher numbers by a mail-in ballot. Historically, Democrats vote in higher numbers by mail-in ballots.
But not all Democrats, just the ones who are voting for the third place candidate, the one candidate who really needed the votes. Don't forget, there were 2 Democrats in the race, but for some reason, only the third place Democrat who needed the votes saw a disproportionate spike in votes several days after the election. Plus, multiple studies have shown that mail voting doesn't provide an advantage to either party. It's a myth. The media will say that claims of fraud here are without evidence. Keep in mind, an anomalous statistical spike like this is evidence of fraud. Ask any forensic accountant. It may not be necessarily proof of fraud, but it is certainly evidence of fraud. But forget the late ballots. Just because the vote swing coincidentally matched the specific Lhasa count of homeless people on the streets, just because NGOs that Nithya cuts checks to were hoarding ballots, just because hundreds of thousands of dead people and ex-residents who've left California were still on the voter rolls, doesn't mean anyone is taking those loose ballots and filling them out. First off, it's against the law. And we all know if it's against the law, it doesn't happen. Secondly, we have signature verification. Everyone has to sign their ballot, and a computer checks your signature. Well, except some voters can't sign, so they carved out a rule where you can just make a mark on the ballot, and a witness can sign on your behalf. It can be an X or a scribble or even a happy face, as long as a witness signs off on it. And don't forget, once they separate the ballot from the envelope, there's zero way to trace it back to the ballot to check if a sudden tranche of votes that swung predominantly to one candidate had come from a bunch of ballots with the happy faces in the signature box. The DSA instructs their ballot harvesters to go door to door and tell them to vote for Nithya Rahman and even help them fill in the bubble for their preferred socialist candidates. This is explicitly illegal. A ballot harvester can't tell you how to vote, and they certainly can't help you fill out the ballot. But laws don't matter if you have no mechanism in place to prevent the crime from occurring in the first place. There is this misnomer being parroted even by staunch critics of California's rigged voting system, saying there's nothing you can do because this is all legal in California. It's not legal. Even by California's own ridiculous laws, all this stuff is still illegal. They've simply removed all the mechanisms to catch the fraud and prevent it from happening. It's like a bank heist, but California has made a law that you can't lock the bank vault. you're not allowed to have security cameras, and you can't count the money inside the vault. Robbing the bank is still 100% illegal, but there's no way to stop it from happening. Now here's the smoky backroom dealing. 5 days before my election, Gavin Newsom signed a ridiculous law that literally banned federal and independent authorities from investigating vote fraud or overseeing elections to monitor for fraud during the counting process.
That's why I'm moving forward with new legislation that would make it a felony to seize ballots before the vote has been certified by state and county officials. We will be the wall he cannot get past.
That's like banning the bank from having security cameras. Now, the timing of this was deliberate. He knows this won't hold up in court, but he did it so close to the election day, he knew the courts wouldn't be able to overturn it in time for the election. It's truly like going up against the casino. The deck is so stacked against you, you never really stand a chance. You can play if you choose, but the house will never lose. So now, in California, you can loot $950 of merchandise. You can knowingly infect someone with HIV, but if you try to prevent vote fraud,
you will be prosecuted.
How can you secure the money if you can't lock the vault? How can you catch the robbers if you're not allowed to monitor the vault? And how can you even identify if the vault were even robbed in the first place if you can't even count the money? This is what California has done with elections. Unsolicited ballots going into open mailboxes and NGOs and parking lots. Bank vault is wide open. No signature required, no ID required, no way to ID the robbers. And the beauty of their rigged system is they can have all the pageantry of this public ballot counting center. Hey, come on down. It's open to the public. Anyone can come watch so you can see just how kosher our system is.
We are inside LA County's massive ballot processing center. When Assistant United States Attorney arrived on scene to observe the process and ask questions.
All the fraud that does occur happens long before the ballots even hit this building. People have been pushing me to demand a recount. Why? You could recount these anonymous ballots 100 times. You'll get the same exact result. I have no doubt that they are doing a flawless job of accurately counting every single ballot in here with robotic precision. The fraud isn't here. It's here on Skid Row, where homeless people are paid a couple bucks for their ballots.
They give you $2 to vote? Yeah, we give you street. Would they come down here and try and pay you to vote?
Yes.
They told you who to vote for?
Since I'm voting your way, can I get a plate? You know what I mean?
It's here where socialist street animals go door to door and violate the ballot harvesting laws. People bring up the old communist adage often attributed to Stalin saying, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. No, this is the modern era of fraud. They've gotten wise. The modern communist agrees with the old communist, but just the first part. It doesn't matter who votes. It doesn't matter if it's a drug zombie being paid for their ballot. It doesn't matter if it's a DSA socialist street animal filling out your ballot. It doesn't matter if it's a blue-haired intern at a Nithya Raman-funded NGO filling out the ballots. The bank vault is wide open. The cameras have been removed, and there's no way to count the money. Now, for those of you who wanted me to fight the election, for those of you who thought I was quitting or I was bought off to step aside and quietly disappear, I'll remind you, there's a smart way to handle these things and a dumb way. Evidence is not proof. I don't say things without proof. Now, anyone saying that there's no evidence of fraud is lying. There's tons of evidence, and I was the one who got it. All those videos that you saw of homeless people admitting that they were paid for their vote, where do you think they came from? Immediately after the big spike of votes came in for Nithya, I sent my team down to Skid Row to collect evidence. We were warned by some very well-connected people that this was happening, so we acted on it immediately. But if you want to end this fraud, doing protests and bitching about stolen elections won't get you anything. You need the fraudsters to start catching charges. For that to happen, you need proof. That's what investigators do. They turn evidence into proof with a robust investigation. You think it's a coincidence that 20 FBI agents suddenly descended on Skid Row to investigate vote fraud? Why do you think they were there? You don't get evidence by going to rallies or storming the ballot processing center. You get evidence by doing real work. And the first rule of criminal investigation is you do not talk about it. Here's the reality. It's too late for my campaign. A lot of people refuse to accept that, but I can. I told you all to get your ass out and vote. Tell your friends to vote. Vote enough to beat the cheat. We didn't beat it, but that doesn't mean I quit. I don't know how to quit.
He never knew when to quit.
My goal isn't to try and salvage the campaign, just like my advocacy in the wake of the Palisades fire wasn't about my own home. It's too late for me. This is about you. This is about the next one. It's about exposing this corrupt rigged system and changing it for the next election. If I have to be the kamikaze pilot to finally get this fixed, so be it. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. The right way isn't easy, but it ends with commie animals in handcuffs. I will restore faith in our elections if it's the last thing I do. And to all you fraudsters out there, we've been watching you, and justice is coming.
Oh, what's this we found here? Boxes of ballots. Ooh, it's not over. Absolutely, this is thrilling. Yeah, Spencer, thank God he is continuing. So, like he said, it's too late for his campaign. They already stole it. But it's not too late to put these people in prison. And that is the work that is continuing as we speak. Couple of different things here. First of all, Principal Enigma says, actually, according to Grok, my previous post was wrong. However, I know from experience how ignorant city cops are in the Constitution. What good does it do to swear an oath to something you know nothing about? So, yes, unfortunately, I mean, I see good cops and bad cops that are city cops. I've seen good and bad constitutional sheriffs as well. No one is immune from ignorance. Lee Walden says, ahoy, Zach, Miss Lisa, and fellow pirates. Zach, I need your wit and wisdom regarding POTUS and his mission regarding warp speed. I think I know what was happening. Just need some help, son. This Trump is COVID king. You want me to revisit the whole warp speed thing? Well, we got a lot to talk about today, and I've done this so many times before. Lee, I would suggest that you go back and maybe clip some of the other stuff that I've said about this. I feel like I've gone over this on so many different occasions. Let's just get through today's program, and if I got time, we'll do this at the end. All right, so continuing on the subject of election fraud, Harmeet Dillon has a follow-up to her announcement yesterday from the Civil Rights Division, and the federal government, reminding everyone that every state and local election office is officially on notice because knowingly encouraging non-citizens to vote or conspiring to fraudulently register non-citizens is a federal crime. And of course, the Civil Rights Division is ready to help with compliance as American citizens deserve free and fair elections. Now, the phrasing of that letter was, of course, very intentional. Why? Well, because there's a saying in the courts. When you're a lawyer, you don't ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And I would submit to you that Harmeet Dillon and the federal government and the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ is aware that illegal aliens are on the voter rolls. And so by telling the officials whose responsibility it is to remove those people from the voter rolls, they are putting them on notice that they are actively committing a crime. We know that illegals are voting. They know that illegals are voting. Harmeet Dillon knows that illegals are voting. By allowing those people to vote, these individuals are placing themselves in legal jeopardy. And I think that Harmeet Dillon and the federal government are already preparing to file charges. Let's take a listen.
This week, the Civil Rights Division has been focusing on election issues as we head into the midterms. Now, among the things we did this week was send a memo and a cover letter to all 50 state election officials and the District of Columbia, reminding them that under several federal statutes involving voting that I administer here at the Civil Rights Division, it is a crime to knowingly allow non-citizens to vote in those states' elections. Now, people got very hysterical about this. I got a lot of pearl clutching from Adrian Fontes in Arizona and talking about a slippery slope, and Deirdre Hutchinson in Utah claimed she was being singled out because she refused to give us the voter rolls under our civil request for that information to help those states that we requested clean up their voter rolls. The Washington State Secretary of State also made some remarks. The reality is no one's being singled out here. We want all people to be reminded that it is a crime to vote in a federal election if you're not a citizen. And it's also a crime if you're an election official or somebody up that food chain who knowingly allows it or conspires to make it happen. And so in fact, people are a little shocked because no one enforces these statutes, but there are actually so many of them. I wanted to go through a refresher, and there's so many of them. I want to make sure I get these numbers right. So there are multiple federal laws, of course, that make it a crime for non-citizens to vote under, particularly the 18 U.S.C. Part of the code. 18 U.S.C. Section 1015 makes it a crime to claim you're a citizen for purposes of registering to vote. Section 911 makes it a crime to falsely and willingly misrepresent your citizenship in the United States. And non-citizen voting in a federal election is itself a different crime, Section 611. But beyond that, there's more. Under the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act, it's also a crime to aid and abet these crimes that I just mentioned. So Section 12 of the NVRA states that the procurement, casting, or tabulation of ballots that are known by an election official to be materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent is a crime. Help America Vote Act, Chapter 209, similarly indicates that it is a crime for anyone to conspire with another to give false information in registering to vote, 52 U.S.C. Section 21144A. Now, to be clear, each of these statutes has what's called a knowledge requirement, and we call it in the law, we learn in law school, scienter. Guilty mind, that means that there has to be a knowledge by the person who you're charging with the crime that they're doing this. And so,
okay, so I see this in the chat. Why don't they just enforce the laws? Why aren't they doing anything? She just explained it to you. There must be the knowledge of the crime being committed. Let me just rewind that for you. She went through the statutes that she reminded these election officials of, and now she's telling you exactly what needs to happen.
it has what's called a knowledge requirement, and we call it in the law, we learn in law school, scienter. Guilty mind, that means that there has to be a knowledge by the person who you're charging with the crime that they're doing this. And so, you know, if you're not doing this on purpose, then you have nothing to worry about. But many election officials in our country are on notice because there actually have been several federal prosecutions since this Trump administration involving non-citizens voting. And just this week, there was someone who's an Australian national who's voted in multiple elections. And as you stay tuned in the news, you're going to see more prosecutions that we're currently investigating and dealing with, and there have already been several. In addition to that, Civil Rights Division has also obtained a guilty plea together with our colleagues in Los Angeles of a woman who was illegally registering untold number of homeless people using a false address. So taken together, you know, these are serious issues. We want all Americans to feel confident when they go to the polling place or they cast their ballot in whatever way they choose to cast it legally, that their vote is being counted only once and only with other American citizens, and that their vote isn't being canceled out by some random stranger, whether they be a green card holder or an illegal alien here in the United States. And this is happening. In fact, you know, you're going to find out a lot more of it's happening than what people are willing to say so far. So with that, we hope there are no prosecutions under these laws come November because everyone is following the law. So, you know, this is your public service announcement about making sure that only American citizens vote in all of our federal elections. Thank you.
So what do they say? Once is coincidence, twice is happenstance, thrice is a pattern. I believe that what they're doing here is establishing a pattern of events. I believe that they are building cases in multiple jurisdictions around the country. Now, she pointed out a couple of cases that we've recently spoken about. Now, let's go and take a look at Michigan specifically, because the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, was one of those people who received this letter. That message that Harmeet Dillon just delivered was for people like Jocelyn Benson. Now, if we remind ourselves of a number of illegal aliens that we have already covered as being currently on the voter rolls in the state of Michigan, we already know the statutes. Harmeet Dillon just went over them: the National Voter Registration Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Help America Vote Act. All three of those specific laws are being violated by Jocelyn Benson in the state of Michigan. Now, this man right here, this is one of 6 people who have previously been identified as currently being on the voter rolls in the state of Michigan. Now, we can continue to look all day through every single voter on the rolls in the state of Michigan, and we would probably find more. But this man right here is an Iranian national, and he was arrested in Dearborn, Michigan for the commission of sex crimes. And you can see that although he's on the voter rolls, he has not voted since November of 2016. Now, there are others who have voted, and Jocelyn Benson, as the Secretary of State in the state of Michigan, has the legal responsibility to remove these people from the voter rolls. But of course, they don't remove them. And Michigan is one of the states that has refused to hand over the voter rolls so that Harmeet Dillon and the federal government can verify that there are other people who are not on those voter rolls. So this would be knowingly retaining non-citizens on Michigan's state voter registration list. It would also be sending those same individuals ballots. And since this guy voted in 2016, that would count as counting of those ballots. So there are undoubtedly other people, and any election official, including the chief election officer, who is the Secretary of State, who knowingly retains non-citizens on the state's voter rolls or facilitates the non-citizens voting and receiving or casting ballots, is subject to criminal liability. By creating the pattern of behavior, by building the case, it becomes more than just one small instance of a person who is a non-citizen slipping through the cracks. It becomes a pattern of behavior, and it becomes a much larger pattern of abuse and a much more easily prosecutable series of crimes that, when put together in context, are not simply people who are just getting away with it. It becomes a case where people are being allowed to get away with it. And it becomes a case where Jocelyn Benson and others in the state of Michigan are at much greater criminal liability. Now let's go to Newark, New Jersey, also another state that has refused to hand over their voter rolls, which makes it more difficult for the federal government to build this case. But we have yet another resident alien in the state of New Jersey, a native of Slovakia, who was arrested and charged with illegally voting in a federal election. They also made false statements while they applied for U.S. citizenship. This person is Marian Charatan, 62, of Middlesex County. They were charged with criminal complaint for voting by an alien in a federal election. That's violation of 18 U.S.C. 611, procurement of citizenship or naturalization unlawfully in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1425A. He had his initial appearance before a U.S. magistrate judge, Michael Hammer, in Newark Federal Court. According to the charging documents that were filed in the state court, in order to register, a person obviously has to be a U.S. citizen. Charatan was not a citizen of the United States when he registered to vote in New Jersey. On his voter registration form, he falsely certified and attested that he was a U.S. citizen. And after his application to register was approved, Charatan, still without U.S. citizenship, voted in the November 8th, 2022 midterm election that was held in part for the purpose of electing a member of the United States House of Representatives. Now, I can't even tell you how many cases like this I've gone over on this show. But what I can tell you is that the fact that I'm going over them on this show is proof that the government actually is following the law. They actually are bringing people for prosecution, and it's just a matter of creating this pattern of abuse so that we can go a step above, not just the people who are actually voting in the elections illegally, but the people above them, the election officials who are allowing them to vote in these elections illegally. So after voting in that federal election, Charatan applied to become a United States citizen by submitting the application for naturalization. That's an N-400. That requires the applicant to swear under penalty of perjury that the information provided in the application is complete, true, and correct. However, we know because he voted in that election, he had to falsely claim on that N-400 that he had never registered to vote or voted in a federal election. So he did this. He is guilty if convicted of voting as by an alien in a federal election that only carries a maximum penalty of 1 year in prison, but obviously he would be deported after that. That count of unlawful procurement of citizenship, however, carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Now, U.S. Attorney Frazier credited special agents of the FBI under the direction of Special Agent in Charge Stephanie Roddy, also Homeland Security Investigations under the direction of Acting Special Agent in Charge Spiros Karabinsis, and U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services as having done this investigation, which led to his charging. The case was brought under the U.S. Attorney's Office Election Integrity Task Force, which is also a new body. This is only recently a task force that has been created. So again, the laws are being followed and people actually are being charged and prosecuted. And the government is represented by Assistant U.S. Attorney Benjamin D. Bleiberg of the U.S. Attorney's Office Criminal Division. So we are actually prosecuting people for this. Again, it's just a matter of creating the pattern of abuse so that we can go one step above. Now, you remember Judge Sparkle Skunkinen, or however you say her last name. She had ruled that the DHS could not use that SAVE program to verify what we are trying to actually prosecute. And she was found in a different court to have made that decision incorrectly. Now, that other court should have made the entire argument moot, and we shouldn't have to worry about it. And, of course, people in all states should be able to use that SAVE program to verify the citizenship status of people on the voter rolls. Well, Judge Skunkinen has freaked out, and she has refused to pause her ruling, which dismantled the Department of Homeland Security's expanded SAVE citizenship verification system, even though this federal judge in Florida had ordered the exact same system must be restored. Obviously, this dispute centers upon the Trump administration's expanded SAVE database. This allows the government to use Social Security numbers and bulk searches so we can verify the citizenship on these voter rolls and other lawful government functions. If we're able to do that, then what everybody is hoping to happen could happen. We could prove that pattern of abuse and then take it a step up and prosecute people like Jocelyn Benson. But the last month when Skunkinen blocked the upgrades, she ruled they violated federal privacy laws. Florida, Indiana, Iowa, and Ohio already secured a court-approved settlement which guarantees access to those same SAVE features. And it was U.S. District Judge T. Kent Wetherill II who ordered DHS to immediately restore them and begin using them. Now, normally what would happen is the original judge, Skunkinen, would have paused her ruling. But rather than doing so, letting the conflict play out, Judge Skunkinen rejected the Trump administration's request, and she accused the government of gamesmanship and insisted that Florida court had erred in significant ways. They haven't. This woman is an immigrant, and she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. So now the conflicting rulings leave DHS in this odd position where you have one judge who was ordered that they must disable the system, and then another judge who was ordered that they must ignore that ruling and then go ahead and start using it. So I'm really, really hoping that the impeachment that was introduced by Abe Hamada is going to ultimately be what decides this. But we also have a proposed set of legislation from Representative Nancy Mace, which would require federal judges and members of Congress and Senate-confirmed officials to be natural-born American citizens. Don't know how far that's going to get. But this is a crisis of sorts, and I don't think Judge Sparkles should be sitting on the federal bench. I can only hope that that Congress is going to take this seriously because it's causing all sorts of problems. Now, not that long ago, the Trump administration lost a ruling in a different court, and that was to close down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But it appears that the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, has, in wake of that ruling, taken the CFPB and changed the way it does business. In fact, turning it into what is being called a financial ICE. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is not gone. Since the federal government has been told they can't close it down, they have instead decided to change what it actually does. So Russ Vought has given it new guidance on who qualifies for mortgages, who qualifies for credit cards. They've made it harder through the CFPB for immigrants to get access to financing. They shouldn't have access to it in the first place. They also put out guidance to curb debanking, which is the practice of depriving certain borrowers of loans. People in the Republican Party, patriots, people who are conservatives, they've been debanked. Now it's time to start debanking the illegal aliens and the immigrants. They've also overhauled their website, and they've removed guidance materials and records of past enforcement actions against large corporations. If we can't get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we might as well start using it to implement Making America Great Again. I love it. All right. Now, Dr. Oz also shared this article from the Los Angeles Times, which I just thought was wonderful in light of the fake news media now admitting that what the administration is doing is working. We know the numbers, $42 billion in Medicare savings from preventing fraud, waste, and abuse for the fiscal year of 2025. More than $22 saved for every $1 invested in the integrity efforts of these programs. And nearly 70% of total savings came from prevention first actions and going after these fraudsters. So CMS and the program integrity team continue to stay on top of this and looking for incidents of people committing fraud. You can see here the article from the Los Angeles Times. Medicare's new approach to halting fraud is paying off. I'm glad that they were willing to publish something in that vein. Also coming from National Fraud Enforcement, I would follow them if I were you because I love watching as this all gets announced. 3 Texas tax return preparers, a tax return preparation business owner, and 2 of their employees were just sentenced today to 50 months, 26 months, and 18 months in prison for their roles in conspiring to file false tax returns on behalf of their clients. No matter the scheme, the agency, or the program involved, those who cheat on their taxes for personal enrichment undermine the very foundation of public trust. That is a quote from Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald. The Fraud Division is working across all fronts to detect, investigate, and prosecute criminal tax violations, and we will protect the integrity of our tax system and ensure that those who seek to enrich themselves at the expense of honest citizens face the full weight of federal prosecution. Now, it's often been said if you don't know the tax laws, then you're stupid. I am never going to tell people to cheat on their taxes, but I am going to tell them that they should probably take full advantage of the system as it exists. It's a fine line. Definitely know what you're doing. Also, Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, has just announced on top of the $2 billion in student aid fraud for higher learning, she and her reduced staff have also just discovered nearly $250 million in fraud across K through 12. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what she and her team have discovered.
Just beginning now to really look into the fraud that you're referencing, the K through 12 schools. We've been focusing quite a bit of our fraud detection, if you will, in higher education, at the moment. And we have, through our student loan program, the FAFSA program, we have actually identified and prevented now over $2 billion in fraud. So I'm very pleased that we've been able to do that. And now we're looking more at the K through 12 issues that you were raising. And I can assure you that we will be following through with our departments to see where this money has been going. If fraudsters are just seemingly trying to pick the pocket of American taxpayers everywhere we turn. So as we're looking at schools, or we're looking at the programs that are going out, we will be focusing on this fraud as well.
So as we discover every spot where fraud is currently taking place, and of course we continue to bring in tariff revenue, eventually the plan is to just get rid of the IRS, and the IRS can then be an enforcement mechanism for pulling in those tariffs. However, we have for your perusal right here an example of some of that school fraud that is taking place within the K through 12 system. Right here, we have a case of $20 million in fraud in Southern California. Here is a new report revealing the staggering extent of fraud in the K through 12 education system. And in this instance, a pair of California school leaders who separately stole nearly $20 million from their schools so they could fund their lavish lifestyles. These 2 cases were among the costliest that were cited in the report, and it details the $225 million in alleged fraud that Linda McMahon just mentioned, looking across the entire country. The report was co-authored by the state Financial Officers Foundation. This is a watchdog group that's made up of state treasurers and auditors and a group, Open the Books. We've talked about them on multiple occasions. They are one of the rare good nonprofits that's focused on transparency in government spending. The coalition of auditors identified nearly 90 cases over the past 6 years, which included things like embezzlement, phony invoices, inflated enrollment, bid rigging, and kickbacks, among a number of other crimes. California, as you might guess, is among the worst offenders of the states that were analyzed in this report, and they found fraud in 24 states total, as well as Puerto Rico. In one case, the small Magnolia School District in Orange County lost about $3,553 per student after a former fiscal services director embezzled nearly $16.7 million so he could buy a luxury home, a car, and designer goods. Oh, I like that shirt. Jorge Armando Contreras stole this money over several years. He spent it on everything from that luxury home to a BMW to designer clothes like you see right there. Also, very expensive tequila. Magnolia is a small elementary school district. They serve just 4,700 preschool through 6th grade students throughout 9 schools in Orange County. In 2024, a judge sentenced Contreras to 70 months in federal prison for his crimes and ordered him to pay back that $16.7 million in restitution. Magnolia, as I said, is a very small school district in Orange County, and according to prosecutors, Contreras wrote himself checks in small dollar amounts under fictitious names. Once he got the proper signatures from others, he would then change the amounts and names on the checks and then just deposit them in his own personal bank account. At the time of sentencing, law enforcement had seized approximately $7.7 million of Contreras' property, including his Yorba Linda home, the BMW, 57 luxury designer bags, jewelry, designer clothes, designer shoes, and 8 bottles of that fancy tequila. I don't understand why a man would have to have designer bags, but you know what? To each his own. Here is a sampling of those bags. I don't know. Was he just buying them to put money in, or was he giving them to women, or was he using the bags himself? I'm not sure. In another case included in this report, the Community Preparatory Academy, a charter school in Los Angeles, they lost about 3 times as much as the other school, $9,090 per student, after the school's head stole more than $3 million in taxpayer funds. They used that money to cover travel, restaurants, shopping, and private school tuition for her children. How ironic that she was running this charter school. She was stealing money from the charter school to send her kids to private school. The school executive director, Janice Buckner, admitted in 2020 to stealing these funds, and prosecutors said it amounted to about 1/3 of all federal and state funding that the school had ever received over the 5-year period when her fraud was committed. She also pled guilty to spending more than $220,600 on Disney Cruise Line vacations, theme park admissions, and other Disney-related expenses. The former educator was sentenced to just 3 years probation, and she was ordered to pay back $2.5 million in restitution. Now, the LA Unified School District first discovered signs of that embezzlement during a routine audit committed back in 2018. In 2019, the district decided not to renew the company's charter, and Community Preparatory Academy is now closed. The report's largest cases centered on allegations that 2 now closed Indiana online charter schools received $44 million in excess funding by inflating enrollment, and a Puerto Rico tutoring company accused of obtaining $24 million by billing for services they never provided. We have the issue down here in Florida as well. A Broward County Public Schools information officer allegedly steered $17 million in contracts to a friend's business. They bypassed competitive bidding and personally profited from those deals. All fraud is harmful, but defrauding education dollars meant to help kids learn and succeed is especially hideous, State Financial Officers Foundation CEO O.J. Oleka said in a statement. The findings in this report should alarm every family, teacher, and civic leader, and the report comes as the Trump administration promised to crack down on government waste, with Vice President J.D. Vance leading the nationwide war on fraud. Continue and accelerate, my friends. All right, now we also have another case of fraud here from the National Fraud Enforcement Division. A gynecologist in Memphis was just sentenced to 20 years in prison for adulterating medical devices and healthcare fraud. This defendant used his medical license to target vulnerable populations of women seeking treatment in extremely personal and intimate procedures. He was motivated by greed, disregarded clear medical risks, and caused significant physical and psychological harm to his victim patients. No punishment is enough to achieve justice in this horrific case, but we hope that this 20-year sentence will send a strong message of deterrence while holding Kumar accountable for his crimes. Let's take a look at who this guilty person is. The performance of more than 15,000 biopsy procedures with adulterated devices on Medicare and Medicaid patients is what Sanjeev Kumar, a 45-year-old, was found guilty of by a federal jury on 18 counts of adulteration of those devices, 16 counts of misbranding medical devices, and 6 counts of healthcare fraud. So on July 8th, Kumar was sentenced by Chief United States District Judge Cheryl Littman to that 240 months in prison and then 2 years of supervised release. Evidence presented at the trial demonstrated that Kumar was a Mayo Clinic trained gynecologist and oncologist who operated Poplar Avenue Clinic. It's a women's health clinic in Memphis. The hysteroscopy with biopsy is an in-office procedure where a hysteroscope is inserted into the vagina, pushed against the cervix, and then into the uterus. A grasper or pipelle is then inserted through the hysteroscope to take a sample of the endometrial lining of the uterus. The procedure is used to diagnose endometrial cancer. The FDA cleared several single-use hysteroscopes and graspers, as well as reusable hysteroscopes to complete these procedures. The single-use devices were to obviously be used once and discarded. To correctly disinfect the devices cleared for reprocessing, Kumar had to strictly follow manufacturer guidelines. However, Kumar routinely failed to subject the reusable devices to vital reprocessing steps between patients, thereby endangering the safety of the patient. The single-use devices, even if they are correctly reprocessed, had to be labeled as such, and Kumar did not label them. So Kumar used adulterated medical devices in more than 15,000 hysteroscopy and biopsy procedures on Medicare and Medicaid patients between September of 2019 and April of 2024. He purchased less than 200 new hysteroscopes and 3 of the 6 single-use graspers of a certain type that he purchased back in 2019 and was still using in April of 2024. So literally thousands of women were subjected to hysteroscopies with biopsies using dirty medical devices. That is absolutely disgusting. I know we have women in the audience, and I can only imagine going to your gynecologist believing that they are using fresh medical equipment to go inside your body and take samples from your uterus. And then you find out later that, oh my God, they were putting dirty medical devices inside of me. Who knows what the ultimate outcome of that was for these women? Perhaps they had damage done to their uterus. Perhaps they were contaminated by somebody else's bodily fluids. Perhaps they could have been given cancer or even given a sexually transmitted disease through this practice. Absolutely disgusting. So I'm glad that this doctor is going to be going to prison. He billed more than $41 million for these procedures in that 5-year time frame. He netted more than $4.8 million for this procedure from Medicare and Medicaid alone, but that amount does not include any hysteroscopy with biopsy procedures performed on patients with private health care insurance. We don't know what he got from that. A separate hearing to determine restitution has been set for October of this year. Absolutely disgusting. So you can obviously see from his name, Kumar, he probably is some type of an immigrant. Also wanted to let you guys know that Congress is now formally investigating Randi Weingarten, the head of the National Teachers Union. They're looking into her using teachers' dues to fund her book, which called conservatives fascists. So this is the Committee on Education and Workforce. They sent Miss Weingarten this letter letting her know that she was being investigated for allegations concerning the American Federation of Teachers' use of workers' dues in connection with the production, promotion, and publication of her book. It's called Why Fascists Fear Teachers: Public Education and the Future of Democracy. So she may be in a bit of trouble. They are looking for documents which show the expenditure of these dues. They're looking for contracts, agreements, and memorandum of understanding regarding the arrangements of her book, documents showing how all work performed by the employees of AFT in connection with the book, and documents sufficient to show all revenue, advances, royalties, licensing payments, speaking fees, and other proceeds that were generated from the book. And then finally, documents sufficient to show the distribution of all proceeds generated by the book and who they went to. They are looking for a whole bunch more, but Randi Weingarten has now been put on notice by Congress, and I can only hope that that means that she will be indicted. Now, speaking of indictments, I have another case for you here. A corrupt Illinois Democrat state representative and county clerks and her husband, who was a county clerk, have both been indicted in a massive fraud ring where they were getting kickbacks from NGOs. They were committing fraud, and it appears that their daughter just weeks ago was also indicted on fraud charges. Take a look at this. She allegedly was claiming COVID unemployment benefits while she was employed as an elected county rep. I actually went over that case a couple of weeks ago, and I was shocked to see that both of her parents were also indicted today as well. So Urbana Democrat State Representative Carol Ammons and her husband, Champaign County Clerk Aaron Ammons, were both indicted this week by a federal grand jury on multiple felony counts, including wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. So the indictment lays out a fairly brazen scheme where Ammons allegedly used her campaign committee, Friends of Carol Ammons, to issue overpayments and then took cash kickbacks, which were disguised as gifts. At the same time, she also used her position as a state lawmaker to steer massive state grants to friendly nonprofits, and then she put her daughter, Titiana Ammons, on the payroll. Her name is literally Titiana. I can't believe that. So according to the federal indictment, Carol Ammons allegedly caused campaign funds to be paid to herself and family members through excess checks and then received cash kickbacks to hide the scheme. She also falsely reported expenditures to the Illinois State Board of Elections, and she helped secure over $1.6 million in state grants for nonprofits, including the Bridgewater Sullivan Community Life Center. That was a $612,000 grant. Her daughter, Titiana, was then paid more than $60,000 as the program director. Ammons even helped draft her daughter's employment contract. Also paid out was the Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center, over $1 million in grants. And guess what? Titiana was paid nearly $10,000 as a digital marketing coordinator. Another grant to Hood Vote also funneled money to her daughter, and prosecutors say Ammons and her daughter received financial benefits in excess of $100,000 through this complicated web of campaign misuse and grant steering between 2017 and roughly 2023. Now, this latest indictment is just 1 month after Carol's daughter, Titiana, was federally indicted back in June on 3 counts of wire fraud for allegedly collecting this COVID-era unemployment benefit, while at the same time she was being paid by her mother's campaign and serving as the Champaign County board member. The indictment gets uglier, where Carol Ammons is accused of lying to an FBI agent in 2017 2024 about her knowledge of these conflicts, and her husband, Aaron Ammons, allegedly engaged in witness tampering, telling a potential witness that the actions were nothing illegal, directing them to muddy the waters when investigators came and asked questions, and they used code words and even passed notes between him and the witness, which were later destroyed. They are all charged with conspiring to obstruct a federal investigation. I am so grateful for the federal agents that are going after these people and bringing them to justice. Now, I wouldn't want to stop there when discussing fraud and corruption in the Democrat Party, because we have another case of a disgraced Democrat mayor, Pkwy Antar Lumumba. He is facing up to a $50,000 bribery scheme, and he has admitted his part in this scheme. He used to be the Democrat mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, but this Monday he pled guilty to conspiracy in this six-figure real estate bribery scheme. He accepted $50,000 in campaign contributions from undercover FBI agents posing as real estate developers. The Hinds County District Attorney Jody Owens funneled the bribes to him and also pled guilty on June 29th. Another Democrat. Lumumba and Owens together each face 5 years in prison. Lumumba accepted the checks, knowing and understanding that the money was from the developers and that it was being offered in exchange for official action from Lumumba in favor of the developer's proposed development project. Lumumba's primary legal counsel, Owens' office, and the city of Jackson did not immediately respond for comment when asked about the fraud they had committed. Owens' payments to Lumumba were concealed as five $10,000 campaign donation checks from third-party entities and individuals, which included Owens. Lumumba then laundered that money through his campaign account before cashing out a portion of the payments. That was a 2024 Department of Justice press release that announced it initially. Owens obtained the funds from the FBI agents in exchange for their agreement to take official action to ensure the approval of the developer's proposed multi-million-dollar downtown Jackson, Mississippi development project. Lumumba originally called the prosecution's charges a political prosecution. However, he has now pled guilty, indicating that he knows that it wasn't. To be clear, I have never accepted a bribe of any type, Lumumba, who was still in office at the time, said. As mayor, I have always acted in the best interests of the city of Jackson. Well, we now know that to not be true. The 43-year-old Democrat served as mayor of Mississippi's capital from 2017 to 2025. He lost his reelection to a Democrat primary challenger named John Horn. His father, the late Pkwy Lumumba Sr., was also the mayor of Jackson from 2013 to 2014. All right, now, we also have some other scandals arising in Illinois. You may have seen a number of shows that I've done here in the past, interviewing people who were involved with a variety of efforts to take portions of certain states and maybe split them off and become their own states or join other states. Well, that effort is alive and well in Illinois, and 7 additional counties have now joined the crusade to leave Illinois and create a new state. Voters in these 7 Illinois counties will now have the chance to join the 33 others that have already approved referendums to consider forming a new state outside of Cook County. These measures will be on the ballot this November in Coles, Gallatin, Hamilton, Henderson, Macoupin, Monroe, and Saline counties. State Representative Brad Halbrook, he's a Republican in Shelbyville, said citizens are frustrated by what's happening in Springfield. They don't see that anything's going to change for the positive, and when I speak about that, you know, it's the Safety Act, it's the Protect Illinois Communities Act, it's a number of other social issues. Governor J.B. Pritzker has added over 60 new taxes in just 8 years. You've had billions of dollars that have been transferred from citizens, from businesses, and it's gone into state budgets or into the state treasury. Halbrook proposed a resolution that goes farther than the ballot measures, and he's urging Congress currently to declare 101 of Illinois' 102 counties as the 51st state in the U.S. I don't know why they're not doing this. I mean, we've got a number of different places, California, Oregon, Illinois. I think Pennsylvania's got some of this stuff. But I mean, so many different places are unhappy with the decisions that are being made by the Democrat-run states that they're currently living in, and these counties and these citizens have done the legwork to secede from their states, and I just don't understand why it's not happening. So, anyways. The Indiana legislature has also advanced bills to consider bringing these Illinois counties into Indiana. Last year, there was an Iowa state lawmaker who proposed a bill to bring several western Illinois counties into the Hawkeye state. And again, voters in several eastern Oregon counties have approved ballot measures in recent years that favor a merger with Idaho. But statewide proposals to change the state lines have failed to advance. Governor J.B. Pritzker has referred to the prospect of Illinois counties leaving as a stunt, but now you've got literally every single county in the state of Illinois saying that they want to leave, with the exception of Cook County. So Halbrook said separating from Cook County would be an uphill battle because Democrats in the supermajority will not let his resolution move forward. We need to have a conversation at a minimum. I think that that's what's important. Why do people want this? Why do they not want to stay here in the state of Illinois? What we're seeing this spring and summer in real time, even the Chicago Bears are moving to neighboring Indiana. Why is that happening? When he was asked about trying to effect change in Cook County instead of pushing for separation from Illinois, Halbrook said the dynamic would change if legislation changes, but that's not the priority of the supermajority. We are seeing their priorities, which lead to these higher costs, these many other things that we've discussed here. And of course, when you've got Democrats that are controlling the state at the level that they do in Illinois, they're not going to let other people have anything, have any say in any of these things. They're just going to continue to do what they've been doing. Let me see. Thank you to G. Fontes, who says, while there are awesome cops, if they were legal experts, they'd be attorneys, as I've heard from both cops and lawyers. That's not bad. Casey the host, I guess you rated the stream earlier. Thank you very much, Casey the host. Appreciate you. Also, Jep863 says, Zach, it's fraud if it's reparations. They think it's owed to them. We need quick trials for fraud and election fraud for this. If proven guilty, they should get a short drop and a sudden stop. So you're saying that the black Democrats who are stealing from their communities, they think it's reparations? Maybe. Maybe they're just corrupt, and maybe they just have no problem ripping off their own constituents. Either way, you know, I agree with you. I think that we need strong signals to be sent. All right, now, remember that Mission Hospital in Texas who was advertising on the Mexican side of the border, inviting people to come over and have babies for less than what they would be charging American citizens. Mission Hospital denied that billboard was in Mexico. But the only problem is the person who took that picture is former Congressman Mayra Flores. She actually took that picture herself, and the post with the original picture was actually made several months ago. She also has the metadata from where the picture was taken, and you can see very clearly it's on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande. So she's got the evidence, and I'm sure that has been passed on to the federal government. Let me see. This is a clip. I want to see if this just has anything new in it, because they mentioned President Trump.
Billboards. You can pay $3,950 if you want to have birth naturally, make your child a U.S. citizen.
Are you kidding?
Your foreign board C-section, $5,525. I spoke with Ken Paxton on this, and he showed me pictures where there are houses in Texas that look residential. So it could be your neighbor's.
Okay, I don't think there's anything new in this. But because of this being exposed, I'm hoping that this will have some sort of an impact on that one justice of the Supreme Court that needs to reconsider their position. Now, Myra also says, just getting down to brass tacks in terms of how much Americans do get charged. A visa holder coming to South Texas next month was just quoted only $6,000 to deliver her baby at Valley Baptist Health System, which is different from Mission. She had originally planned to give birth in Alabama. But in Alabama, the price to have a baby if you're not a citizen is $20,000. So she chose Texas because it's a lot more affordable. Meanwhile, American mothers regularly receive hospital bills of $25,000 or more for the exact same services. I remember when my daughter was born back in 2001, the ultimate bill was somewhere close to $50,000. So obviously they are ripping off Americans, and they are incentivizing illegals and visa holders to come here and have babies so that they can then become American citizens. Now, I have another tool for you guys to use, this time from Patriot Pledge, at Patriot Pledge US. They say mass migration, both legal and illegal, is destroying American labor and the American way of life. We've built a map of every U.S. business sponsoring H-1B visas. Stop funding your replacement and take the Patriot Pledge today. Buy American, hire American, love American. So their tool is similar to what we saw yesterday with that drill down of H-1B information. But I always like to have multiple sources. So check them out at Patriot Pledge US on X, and the tool that they're talking about is app.patriotpledge.us, and you can go there and they will give you all the information about H-1B visa hiring businesses in your area. And again, if you guys use this tool and you find that these businesses are not real or they are engaging in fraudulent activity, I encourage you to turn them in and then tell me about it. Thank you also very much to Pquest for the cookie, Sean Joe for a cookie, and then another cookie. He says, I bet it's because the amount of Muslims that are in Dallas area, like in the UK. That very well could be. Zeta Anand, thank you for the ship, my friend, and thank you for another ship. I appreciate you. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. No thanks, Joe. Thank you for the cookie. He says, good Thursday afternoon to you, Lisa and Zach. Always enjoy your reporting. God bless and stay safe all. Thank you. Unchained 01 says, Zach, the bagman is gay. I was insinuating that I think the bagman is probably gay. I don't know any man who buys designer handbags that doesn't have a little sugar in his step. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. Now, I have a very quick message from my friends over here on Rumble. Let me get this pulled up, and we will discuss. Okay. Thank you very much. If you haven't yet, please consider hitting that like button. And thank you very much. All right, you guys. I want to remind you about another sponsor of the program, NeutronicsLabs.com/Red Pill. This is a product, Man's Edge, which is a testosterone booster. It is of the highest quality. And for people who are looking to increase their health and well-being, if you're a man looking to have more health, more vitality, overall performance, whether it's in the gym or at home, then this is definitely something you're going to want to check out. And when you use this, you will be enhancing muscle growth, boosting your energy levels, supporting your stamina, and overall increasing your well-being. It has many different ingredients in it, but that includes 25,000 nanograms of IGF-1. It's also got a potent mix of things like Tribulus terrestris, fenugreek, longjack, L-arginine, L-citrine, and it's also got nitrous oxide, or NO2. Which is nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide. But this is a supplement that has been formulated to naturally help boost a man's testosterone levels. When you get it on auto ship, they will automatically give you 50% off, and you will also get a free bottle of their Platinum IGF-1, which is one of the ingredients in this, but IGF-1 is incredible. I've done a number of shows talking about the incredible results that people can get from that. Also, when you go to their website, neutronicslabs.com/Red Pill, and use the code Red Pill, you're going to get an extra 10% off on top of the free bottle, on top of the 50% off. So definitely go check them out. Lots of great testimonials from people who have used it. I have used it as well myself, and I can't say enough good stuff about it. Thank you to them for supporting the program. Thank you to Make Sense to Me Too as well, who says, thank you for all your work, sir. Thank you for supporting the program. I really do appreciate you. All right. Now, let us begin the next portion of the show, still talking about illegals. And I've said this on so many occasions. I hate waking up in the morning, getting the show ready, and having to decide which cases of Americans dying at the hands of illegal alien truck drivers I'm going to talk about that day. Well, Here we have one of those cases. This was a particularly sad and heinous example of an illegal alien killing an American citizen because the young man who died was a promising young athlete. And this happened on Sunday. A semi-truck driven by this illegal alien, an Uzbek national who could not speak English, rear-ended the vehicle of this young man on Interstate 71 in Madison County, Ohio. The young man who was killed is Toby Forsyth. He was only 21 years old, and he was a goalkeeper for UMass Lowell's men's soccer team. He was driving down the road at about 1:37 a.m. when this semi-truck driven by Bekzad Azrarov, a 42-year-old illegal alien, struck Mr. Forsyth's car from behind. That caused the truck to cross the median into northbound lanes of traffic, and there was a series of collisions that happened as a result of that. And of course, Toby was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, Azrarov sustained non-life-threatening injuries. These guys never seem to get hurt. They only seem to kill Americans, and he was transported to the hospital. Before being taken to the hospital as Toby lay dying, Azrarov took the time to allegedly tamper with his dash cam because he was trying to hide the evidence of his malfeasance. The Ohio State Highway Patrol has charged him with tampering with evidence, that's a third-degree felony, alleging that he concealed the dash cam from investigators. But the investigation continues. As he is an illegal alien, I'm sure that more charges are going to be coming. Now, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy spoke out about this, and he said Toby Forsyth was only 21. He was a star goalie for UMass Lowell's soccer team, and he had his whole life ahead of him. On Sunday, his life was stolen. A massive semi-truck driven by Bekzad Azrarov rammed the back of Toby's car on I-71 in Madison County, killing him instantly. At the crash scene, the truck driver ripped out his dash cam, and he hid it in his pocket. He failed his English language proficiency test, and state troopers had to use Google Translate to talk to him. We cannot let truck drivers like Azrarov, who can't read our road signs or speak to law enforcement, drive 80,000-pound rigs on American highways. I'm praying for Toby's family and for the loved ones after this terrible loss. We will never stop fighting to keep these dangerous drivers off the roads so no other parents have to endure this unimaginable grief. Forsyth is from Gahanna, Ohio, and he played 2 seasons at Ashland University and 1 at Shawnee State before transferring to UMass. Their athletics team released a statement mourning the loss as well. It's with great sadness that we share the passing of Toby Forsyth. Toby joined our program this winter, and he was everything you hope for in a young student athlete, and he was an even better person. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends during this difficult time. His head coach also said today, our Riverhawk team is grieving the loss of one of our own. Toby was everything you hope for in a student athlete, and he was an even better person. He was humble, honest, selfless, and the definition of hard work. Every single day he showed up ready to compete, improve, and do whatever was asked of him. He never looked for shortcuts, and he never expected anything to be given to him. He simply wanted the opportunity to earn it. As a coach, those are the players that you never forget. Toby's blue-collar mentality, unwavering work ethic, and love for his teammates made our program better every day that he was a part of it. I often wish every player approached the game and life the way that Toby did. Our hearts are with Toby's family, friends, teammates, and everyone who had the privilege of knowing him. We will forever be grateful that Toby was part of our family, and we will honor his memory by carrying forward the example that he set. Rest easy, Toby. You will always be a Riverhawk. Now, the dangerous and unfortunately all too often deadly consequences of illegal aliens being given commercial driver's licenses are seeing results every single day. The fact that these people are on the roads means that we have Americans being killed by them on such a frequent basis that, as I said before, I have to pick and choose which of these cases I'm going to talk about. These people can't speak English, which means that they can't read road signs. And even the ones who can sort of read English don't know what the hell they're doing when they're driving down the road. There was another one earlier this week that I didn't talk about. It was an Indian who had been given a CDL, and he was texting and driving as he drove down the road. Boom, obliterated an American young man, killed him, and just kept driving. Safety experts estimate that we have still, even though we've taken their CDLs away and demanded that every state do the same, there are still 130,000 illegal alien truck drivers most likely operating within the United States. Tens of thousands are believed to have obtained licenses through illegitimate means. Some of them were just given licenses by states like California or Pennsylvania. Others were able to achieve a license because they had somebody else taking the driving test for them, the proficiency test for them. In this instance, another really tragic and unnecessary case, an illegal alien who already had multiple prior deportations under his belt and had a history of DUIs killed a 6-year-old girl in a crash in North Carolina. Now, he came and left the United States on 3 separate occasions. This 6-year-old girl died instantly. Her mother and her siblings were also in the car. They did not die. And I can only imagine what happened inside that car, what those children saw, what the mother saw when this monster killed her.
Mexico is accused of killing a 6-year-old girl after running a stop sign and crashing into the car she was driving in with her family in North Carolina last week. The child, Callie Toller, died at the scene.
This is her. And I just want to make sure we see this child long enough so that people remember her. Because I know it means something to you guys. I understand that everybody watching the show right now has the requisite empathy and understanding to be able to say, yeah, you know what? I can admit it. These monsters need to be deported. I don't think, anybody watching the show, well, probably maybe a couple of pricks over on YouTube. I had to ban some people earlier. Maybe they want those illegal aliens on the road killing 6-year-old girls, but not me. Not me. That's why I'm talking about it, because it should never happen. These people shouldn't be in our country. These people have no right or claim to our nation or our roads, and certainly not to the life of this 6-year-old girl. But every single time these people demand that illegal aliens be given free rein, demand that our borders be torn down, it leads to things like this. It leads to the death of promising young Americans who otherwise would have grown up to make something of themselves, who otherwise would have grown up to give back to this country, to add to the fabric, the rich tableau that is America. These illegal aliens are not part of that fabric. They have no right to be here. I can go as an American to any nation on earth, enter that nation illegally, and I will get arrested, I will get deported, and I will get sent back here. For too long, these people have just been allowed to flood into our nation. And now we're at the point where I got to talk about kids dying every single effing day. And the job of removing them is so overwhelming. It's happening. We're having thousands of people deported every single day, but it's not enough. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. We're going to be doing this for decades, decades upon decades.
Her mom and a 4-year-old sibling were rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. The suspect is facing a series of charges, including misdemeanor death by vehicle, reckless driving, and driving with a revoked license. DHS says he illegally re-entered the U.S. 3 times and had a history of driving under the influence and of obstructing police. Mexico.
Tragic, absolutely tragic, and totally unnecessary. I got one more for you. An illegal alien named Emmanuel Lopez Talamuco, 38, of East Chicago, Illinois, ran a red light. He caused a violent 3-vehicle crash that left a Portage grandmother, her 3-year-old grandchild, and another truck driver with significant injuries just yesterday morning. Thank God nobody's dead yet. But here's the thing. This guy was driving a big rig, but he did not even possess a CDL. Following the crash, it was determined he was detained and taken to Franciscan Health in Rensselaer, Illinois, where he was medically cleared, and investigators then determined he did not possess a driver's license or a commercial driver's license, but somehow he was operating a semi-truck. So my next question is, the person who owned that truck, the company that owned that truck, are they going to be held liable criminally? They should. they should lose their license. They should not be able to operate as a business. They should be immediately crushed because nobody else should have to be put in this position. The grandmother was airlifted to Advocate Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn. The 3-year-old was airlifted to the University of Chicago Children's Hospital, and then the other truck driver was transported to Franciscan Health Crown Point. The Jasper County Sheriff's Department arrested him, and U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement has an immigration hold on him because he is illegal. Will Illinois do the right thing? Will they hold on to him, or will they set him free so he can go maybe kill another person? Absolute madness. All right, so we go from a case where these people were blameless to a case where this woman right here, beautiful American woman, is responsible for her own death at the hands of a Muslim. Inshallah, God willing, this woman put herself in a position to be murdered by a Muslim. Here she is with him again. She was a pro-Palestinian activist, and I guess that she thought that the best way she could give back to the movement would be to date an Arab, and the results were foreseeable. Probably going to get a copyright strike on YouTube for that one. Her name was Jamie Carney. She was an American. She was living in Europe. She was in Ireland at the time that she was beaten to death by her Muslim boyfriend. But again, a completely avoidable tragedy. Ironic that it's happening in Ireland because Ireland seems to be like a focal point, an inflection point for citizens pushing back against this kind of madness. But the Irish Times reported that 43-year-old Jamie Carney, she's got quite the filter in this picture here, by the way. She was found dead in her rented home in Killarney on Tuesday around 1:20 p.m. local time by a family member. She lived at the residence with her 13-year-old daughter. That's the most tragic part about this. And the murder was brutal. The Irish Mirror reported that she not only suffered serious head injuries in the brutal attack, but she had been hidden by a duvet that was placed over her. For those of you who don't know, a duvet is just a fancy word for blanket. She moved to Ireland from New York 5 years ago, and a spokesperson for the State Department released the following statement to Newsweek after confirming the death of her a day earlier in the county of Kerry, which is where Killarney is located. The Trump administration has no higher priority than the safety and security of Americans. We offer our sincerest condolences to the family and the loved ones on their loss. We offer our sincerest condolences to the family. Police in Ireland have identified a man in his 20s, but they are refusing to release his name. Why? Because he's a Muslim invader. The Irish Mirror reports the man allegedly killed Carney is an asylum seeker, previously known to Carney and had occasionally stayed at her house. The asylum seeker had previously... Lisa, I think Chi-Chi has to go pee. He's hanging out. I don't know. He's like standing around and looking at me. He had previously lived in France, and the police now fear he may flee Ireland before his apprehension. Well, no shit, Sherlock. He has also repeatedly been residing in Ireland since mid-2024, and he was previously an applicant for international protection. Another fake asylum seeker. According to Jamie's Facebook, TikTok, and local reports, she was known locally as a community member involved in pro-Palestine activities. She also had F-ICE posted all over her social media. At the time of her death, she was dating an Arab man, and she posted several TikTok videos talking about their relationship. It's unknown at this time whether it's the same Arab man that was involved in her death, but if I had to guess, I'd say he probably was the same Arab that they are now seeking. I got to turn this down so that we don't get another copyright. Ah, there he is. So in love. So in love. Yep.
Because somehow you showed up.
She thought she was really sticking it to the man by dating a guy that would later beat her to death. Yeah. Again, tragic, but totally unnecessary. She didn't have to die like that, but she put herself into that position. You know, if I had $1 for every time I had to report on a situation where some dumb liberal broad from America ends up dying at the hands of a Muslim. I'd be pretty rich at this point. All right. Now, let us get to the main event. Why is Claudia Sheinbaum threatening the United States of America? Well, this week, a United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer fatally shot a Mexican man in Houston, Texas. This was on Tuesday morning during an attempted immigration arrest. So the DHS said the officers tried to stop this vehicle around 6:50 a.m. It was a targeted operation. They were looking to arrest Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. They had previously identified him as an illegal alien from Mexico. Well, Lorenzo refused to comply, and from information we are receiving, he rammed an ICE law enforcement vehicle. He refused to follow multiple verbal commands, and he weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over an ICE law enforcement officer, which resulted in our officer firing his weapon in self-defense. Salgado Araujo was rushed to the hospital, but he died. If you, we'll see if there's a picture in here. I saw a picture of the grouping, and it was like 5 shots straight into this dude's head. So likely he was dead at the scene. But the Inspector General has opened a review of the shooting. FBI Houston began investigating the assault on the federal officer, and authorities have not identified the agent. But I'd say that this is a good shooting, okay? You use your car as a weapon, and you're going to get plugged. The Houston Fire Department found the man with a gunshot wound to his abdomen, and the shooting took place. Oh, no, this is a different. Hold on. I need to exit the reader view so that we can get the appropriate. Okay, so Salgado was rushed to the hospital where he died, and the Inspector General is investigating. Okay, so no, maybe I guess he was able to get away. And the shooting took place on the city's East End. His son, Ronaldo Salgado, pushed back on the government's version on Facebook. He said his father was a longtime construction worker that was headed to the job site that morning. He might be. You can be in the country illegally and still be a longtime construction worker. My father has been in this country for nearly 35 years, working in construction to provide for myself, my 2 brothers, and my mother. So why didn't he get his paperwork in order if he was here for almost 4 decades, Ronaldo? He was in the process of obtaining his work permit through the legal process. 35 years it took him to obtain the paperwork. I'm calling bullshit. He was on his way to work, picking up his workers. My father did not deserve this. Well, you know, the agent that shot him did not deserve to have his body rammed by your father's vehicle. Democratic Texas Representative Sylvia Garcia, who is the rep that oversees that neighborhood, demanded an independent inquiry. I'm sure that the government will take care of it. ICE has released an initial account, but the facts must be independently and thoroughly investigated. Well, they have body cameras, so we'll see from that body camera footage. I am certain. And of course, all of the left-wing media and social media are calling this an assassination. Like, if he only got shot once, he's lucky he only got shot once because, like I said, it was a pretty solid grouping. Of course, the family of the illegal alien, Lorenzo, has put together a GoFundMe. They've set the goal at $75,000, and they have now, as of the writing of this tweet, which was early this morning, early yesterday, midday yesterday, they were at $53,000. Here is the scene. Ay, Dios mío. Ay, Dios mío. Anyways, again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If you're an illegal alien and you've been in the country for 35 years and you can't get your shit together and get your papers legally, then I don't know what to tell you. You could have gone quietly. You could have been removed. You could have taken the $2,600 and gone back to Mexico a long time ago and then gotten into the country legally after that. But you chose violence that day. You chose to use your car as a weapon, and that's why you got shot. I have zero sympathy. Absolutely no sympathy. Anybody who's here in this country illegally, get ready. Because if you act like this, this is what's going to happen to you, and I don't care. Now, Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, She announced that her government is looking into taking legal action against agents from ICE and U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement over this latest shooting. Why? You know, this is not your country. Deal with your own shit. All right? You have people who are here illegally in our country, and we have tolerated it for a long time. She says, we cannot allow the mistreatment of our brothers who are here in the United States. Guess what? I am hoping against hope that they stream resources into these areas and find these people and deport them as quickly as possible. So I don't know what you hope to achieve, Claudia Sheinbaum, but I can guarantee you the only thing you're going to do is piss off Trump even more. Right now, they're losing the USMCA. We are also in Mexico rounding up Mexican politicians and cartel people because your country is a narco state at this point. Why do you think people are trying to leave? Because they don't want to get beheaded on the way to work in the morning. The U.S. federal agents from ICE were simply trying to arrest Lorenzo, but he used his vehicle as a battering ram. During her speech, Sheinbaum left out the attack on authorities. Conveniently, she forgot to mention that he used his car to attack the agents. His only fault was not having papers, even though he had been hired by an American company. That American company needs to be criminally prosecuted as well. She said they don't have to be in detention centers or for there to be any violence. No, there can be violence on the street. If they attack federal agents, then this is what's going to happen. F around, find out. If you are a Mexican citizen in the state of Mexico and you attack a federal agent, you're probably just going to get murdered. Those people are brutal down there. If you're an American and you attack a Mexican federal agent, you're probably going to get murdered because they don't play around. Now, she didn't provide any specifics on the measures that her government is going to take. She does claim they will be judicial in nature. She claims, following a recent series of similar comments she made in March, where she said her government would file complaints with the Inter-American Court on Human Rights. But despite her claims at the time, she's done nothing. And the United States is not a member of the Inter-American Human Rights System, so who cares? It's made up primarily of Latin American countries, and it does not include the U.S. or Canada. So, Sheinbaum, your lip service will do nothing except further solidify your position as inferior to the United States of America. Let's see. Thank you to... hold on. I got to go back to Cyrus. Look up the Louisville can opener overpass. LOL, 2 to 3 illegals crash their trucks into an overpass every day here. It's nicknamed the Louisville can opener. Do they make it out, or do they take care of themselves? Lee Walden says, Zach, I'm sorry I brought up warp speed, and I'm convinced that the boss did his best under the circumstances. My 40-year-old son has been black-pilled, and it's beyond the spew. I'll do what I can. Thanks. You don't have to apologize. It's just that we've done it so many times. I just don't feel the need to do it again. But apology accepted, and I wasn't mad at you. Don't worry. Cyrus also says illegals hitting the Louisville can opener are getting arrested for driving with their shady CDLs, which will save lives, get them off the road. So I consider our can opener a bit of a small filter. I like it. I absolutely like it. Lee also says, let's arrest whoever is hiring these illegals, double the penalty. So we do know that the administration has already designated that the federal agencies go after the companies that are hiring them. I've reported on a couple of them, but you know, it's particularly heinous in the CDL industry because you have so many foreigners who are opening up these companies and then making like 1,000 iterations of their businesses so that like one of them gets in trouble, they immediately shut it down and they just move on to the next one. ZBM says, jumping on the $5 bandwagon. Want to give some support when I can. You're the best, Zach and Lisa. Cheers from Idaho. I love you, brother. Thank you for that. Jep863 says, multiple offense illegals that involve the death of an American need no jail, straight death penalty. I agree with you on that. No stops, no deportation. Everyone involved in this process from the start needs the same result. Yes, I am 100% in favor of swift death penalties. Also, Lee Walden says, my donation to the Miss Lisa yacht captained by Master Zach Commander. You are a scholar and a gentleman, Lee. Love you, brother. Thank you for that. Yes, the police in Mexico are so corrupted. They arrest American tourists and demand money for no reason. They do this on the regular. It's on YouTube. No, you don't have to tell me. I am aware. Cops in Mexico are corrupt as all get out. All right? I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, the Mexicans understand that. I'm sure that they are just as put upon as Americans. Well, Americans more so because they are looked at as having more money. But what's really angering me about this situation, and I wrote it in the title of this show, is that we have had countless American citizens that have died at the hands of illegal aliens from Mexico. So many times, not always, but many times when I talk about these cases of illegal aliens driving CDLs, they are from a Latin American country. Sometimes they're from Europe. Sometimes they're from Asia. But there are plenty of them who are from Mexico. And you have all of these Americans. Look at this. All of these Americans dead. When has Sheinbaum ever opened her mouth to apologize for the citizens of her country that she perfectly is happy to send here living illegally, sending remittances back home to Mexico? When has she ever apologized for the deaths of innocent Americans that have happened here on our soil? We have every right to protect our sovereign land. We have every right to enforce our borders. We have every right to arrest and deport every single illegal alien. And yes, we have every right to shoot an illegal alien if they use their vehicle as a weapon to come at one of our federal agents. Be forewarned. This is what happens. You F around, you find out.
See, as you can see, the more you around, the more you're going to find out.
Keep testing me, bro. Keep testing me, and that's what you're going to find. All right. Now, speaking of illegal aliens, Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator has said that he regularly comes across illegals who speak Spanish, kidnapping underage kids so they can traffic them for sex. He said, we routinely see people who are not supposed to be in this country coming here to abuse our children. We had a guy show up who was from a Central American country. I think it was Honduras. He was here for a girl. Unbeknownst to us, his cousin, who is also here illegally, is waiting in the car. Well, he takes off and he T-bones the undercover car. It turns out they were both here illegally and they were both planning to kidnap this young girl and traffic her into the sex trade. This is what's at stake.
We routinely see people who are not supposed to be in this country coming in and abusing our children. We work in Livingston Parish, Louisiana. We had a guy show up who was from, a Central American country. I think it was Honduras. And he comes in, and we're going at it with my limited Spanish and translators, but he's there for a girl. And unbeknownst to us, his cousin, also in the country illegally, is waiting in the car. And as I'm halfway through this interview, we hear, rum, rum, he's got one of those, Dodge Challengers. He takes off, T-bones an undercover car. It turns out they were both in this country illegally, and they were going to kidnap the girl and traffic her. That was the plan.
I don't think people realize how bad and widespread this issue is with illegals meeting up for underage kids for sex.
Well, I think we know it here on this channel because every opportunity I get to highlight this problem, we talk about it. And again, in the same way I can't count the number of Americans that have died at the hands of illegals that are driving trucks, I also can't quantify for you the number of kids that we have seen be sex trafficked as a result of these people coming to our country illegally. But it's bad enough that we need to continue talking about it and continue driving this point home. Case in point, an illegal alien once again charged with the abduction, the assault, and the aggravated sexual abuse of a 9-year-old child. Court documents show this child has severe and profound intellectual disabilities. This is a kid who quite literally could not advocate for themselves in any way. A child is already innocent enough. And when you take advantage of that, you are committing a cardinal sin. You should be put to death. But when you take a child with developmental or physical disabilities and you abuse them, that is a special ring of hell that is reserved for you. Johnny Gianel Velasquez Muro. He's an illegal alien from Venezuela. He pursued this 9-year-old girl who was riding her bike in Pine Grove, Illinois, forced her into a nearby vehicle, and he sexually assaulted her there. The suspect initially fled the scene but was arrested afterwards through forensic evidence on June 30th of this year. Velázquez Muro now faces charges of aggravated kidnapping of a child, predatory criminal sexual assault, aggravated criminal sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation of a child. DHS says that Velázquez Muro illegally entered the U.S. from California in 2022. He was then released by the Biden regime. U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement lodged a detainer asking J.B. Pritzker and Illinois sanctuary politicians not to release him. Will they do the right thing? Probably not. This criminal illegal alien kidnapped and sexually assaulted a 9-year-old girl. This monster abducted this child while she was riding her bike. Acting Assistant Secretary Lauren Biss of DHS said, DHS is calling on Governor Pritzker and his fellow sanctuary politicians to commit to not releasing this pedophile from jail and instead work with ICE to ensure he is never allowed to prey on more innocent children in our country again. It's common sense. Do not release illegal alien pedophiles from jail into American neighborhoods to victimize more children. I guarantee you they're going to let him go. They do it in Illinois. They do it in Virginia. They do it in California. They do it in every single one of these places. I don't know what it is. They obviously hate America. They hate children. They hate the innocent. And so they continue to do this. Absolutely disgusting. All right, now we got to jump to my former home state of Michigan because ICE is once again begging for Michigan authorities to detain another illegal alien, this time from Haiti. He was also released into the U.S. by the Biden administration, and he killed a coworker at a Michigan meat plant on June 30th in Coldwater, Michigan. Valmir Djempsly, who is from Haiti and an illegal, got into an argument with his coworker, a 21-year-old named Brandon Eduardo Velázquez Chavez, maybe another illegal, who knows, at this meat packing facility. The argument escalated, and according to witnesses, Djempsly allegedly chased after Chavez with a knife before stabbing him in the back. Despite the best efforts of medics at the scene, Chavez died. Witnesses told investigators they saw him chasing him with a knife, and from what I know right now, the knives are identified by the employees. They are given numbers, and they're given to employees by that, and there was a dispute over a knife. This was a dispute over the knife. That's why he chased him and stabbed him to death. Absolutely insane. These people do not deserve to be in our country.
Valmir Djempsly appearing virtually in court Wednesday afternoon, in tears after learning of his homicide charge. Djempsly is accused of stabbing Clemens Food Group co-worker Brandon Chavez after an argument about a knife. Police say Chavez was using Djempsly's assigned knife, and Djempsly told authorities Chavez tried headbutting him when he gave it back, although no witnesses confirmed the headbutting happened, according to police. Documents reveal Djempsly admitted to swinging the knife at Chavez, ultimately stabbing him in the lower left part of his back. Chavez died from the injury shortly after.
These people are retarded. I'm glad he's crying. I'm glad he feels bad. But he only feels bad for himself. He doesn't feel bad for the life that he took. He doesn't care about that. If he cared about that, he wouldn't have stabbed this dude in the back. Also, another tragic case. A 5-year-old little boy has just been stabbed to death by his own father outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. The name of the suspect? Jahaz Akil Khalik Eccles. And guess what? He was out on $5,000 bond for another assault on a woman, and he's previously been arrested more than 20 times.
5-year-old being stabbed multiple times here in Pineville. We have some new video to show you this morning. I want to go to that right now just to see exactly what is going to be looking like out here. We also know the name of the father as well. His name is Jahaz Akil Khalid Escalez. Now, there's actually 2 scenes this morning. I want to clarify what's going on here. There's actually 2 scenes involved with this. The first one being here at the apartment where this stabbing happened, and the other one being actually where they located the suspect, the father. The police chief tells me this morning that the father actually ran from the scene after the situation happened, after he allegedly stabbed his own child. Now, we do know that that father is in custody as of right now and is charged with murder. The chief says that boy's mother called officers this morning just after midnight, and when officers arrived, they found the boy stabbed multiple times and rushed him to the hospital. Sadly, just to report this morning, there is blood literally all over the scene out here in this parking lot, also on the steps leading to this apartment. Now, Pineville Police Chief Corey Copley says that his officers did everything they could to save the child's life.
Yeah, it's very tragic. I mean, when you're met in the parking lot with something like that immediately before you can get out of your patrol car and you have to render first aid, you got to put your emotions aside and do the good work that you're trained to do. Immediately, those officers' actions took over, and they put the child in the back seat of the police car with another officer and drove him straight to the hospital. Didn't wait around or anything. We just wanted to get that child the best care possible as soon as possible.
And we're also learning this morning that another child and the mom was inside the home at that time. We're learning that they are okay this morning. They were not injured in this situation. We're also learning from the police chief as well that they've been called to this home before for a domestic issue.
So this guy, once again, is somebody who never should have been out of prison. And the reason he wasn't in prison is because of retards like this guy. This is in Charlotte, not far from where this event took place. This guy was out protesting on the street. He was interviewed by the news. He claims to be protesting President Trump in favor of veterans and Social Securities. But then later in the interview, it turns out that he was a former USAID worker living in Vienna, Austria, and he was just pissed off that he was forced to come back because USAID got shut down.
I'm concerned about the cuts to veteran care, to Social Security. I worked in Eastern Europe and was told to come home after the president put a 90-day hold on all foreign aid and assistance a couple of months ago. I'm concerned.
So who knows what this guy was doing out there, but no wonder he's upset. Thank you very much to Intolerant Leftists for the cookie. She shouldn't just call all her peeps home since we're so mean here. Yeah, she should. Claudia Sheinbaum, tell everybody to come home. Tell them to leave the U.S. economy. I'm cool with it. Let's see. Lee Walden also said Man on Fire, Denzel Washington. That is a great movie. They also just made a series of Man on Fire on Netflix. Lee Walden says, let's consider how the fallen have been exposed with the heinous crime of abuse to children. Now, what would a civil society use as a punishment? First, firing squad, millstone, or the chipper, sharks. I think the most economic way is just the firing squad. All right, we're going to round out here with a little bit of news on the Tyler Robinson case. So the judge, this is the preliminary hearings to determine if there's enough evidence to hold the trial against Tyler Robinson. Based upon some of the stuff that was introduced today, I'm going to say yes, there is 100% enough evidence. Primarily, the most damning stuff that I saw was the testimony of Tyler Robinson's boyfriend, Lance Twiggs. He was previously living as a trans woman, but now it looks like he's back to being a man, and that's from his testimony. Anyways, but in this instance, the judge ruled in the favor of the defense. The team for Erica Kirk had asked for everything to be entered, but then there were some things that they didn't want entered. That was a little strange, but what he ruled about here was this so-called confession of Tyler Robinson. Portions of it will be redacted, and only portions of the statement will be introduced as part of the evidence. And this was a ruling to allegedly protect Tyler Robinson's rights. Now, that really doesn't matter when you have the testimony of Lance Twiggs, who basically gave his phone over to the police. You know, the messages, obviously people are questioning whether or not those messages are from Tyler Robinson. Lance Twiggs testified that they were. Now, I'm not saying that Lance Twiggs couldn't be influenced. I think that that's entirely possible. But here is just a brief portion of that testimony.
First and last is fine.
Okay, my name is Lance Twiggs.
And do you know Tyler Robinson?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
And this is the same Tyler Robinson that's been charged with the shooting of Charlie Kirk?
Yes.
And would you say when you first met Tyler?
I think it was 2023. I've known him longer than that, though. That was, I think, the first time I met him in person.
Okay.
They don't ask what is your relationship to Lance or to Tyler Robinson, which I found interesting.
And will you describe your relationship with Tyler?
Here we go.
When you first met him, anyway.
When I first met him, I didn't know him super well. He was just a new roommate, so I knew he knew my friend group, and I knew he liked playing games, but that's about it when we first, when he first moved in.
Just conveniently leaves out the fact that they ended up scrumping.
Okay. Before we go on, I realized my mic was muted at the outset. Was yours on, your microphone? Okay. I'm going to repeat those admonitions just to make sure we've got it recorded. Okay, so again, I placed you under oath. Just to make a record, I'm going to do it again. You do solemnly swear that...
Okay. So yeah, damning evidence presented from Lance Twiggs in the form of his phone and the communications between them. He was asked if Tyler had written a letter admitting to killing Charlie Kirk. He said yes. There was also, of course, the DNA evidence on the towel and the gun. Interestingly enough, most of the evidence appears to be DNA from Lance Twiggs, not from Tyler. The prosecution presented probabilities that it could be anybody else. They didn't say that 100% this is the DNA. Like the way that they phrased it was really odd, and I'm going to have to go back and look at that to tell you guys exactly what it was. But it sounded like the way that they presented it, it's just like, oh, it's billions of chances that it wouldn't be somebody else, but they just didn't say, it is. And it was more, and the majority of it being Lance Twiggs. That was just odd to me, because you would think if Tyler was the shooter, then he would have been the one. Anyways, there were some things in this preliminary hearing so far that seem to have favored Tyler, and then others which seem to be very, very damning. All right, and we will go ahead and end it there because I am ready for dinner. So let me say thank you to Principled Enigma, who says, how about being stoned to death Old Testament style? That's even cheaper than bullets. But yes, I also think that the energy that would need to be expended by people throwing those rocks is energy that would be wasted when we could very quickly and easily do it with just one shot. Lance Twiggs sounds like a male stripper name. And it is his legal name, though, which is strangely enough. All right, so let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything over here. And no, I am not. All right, Muffin, I'm ending the show, honey. Don't worry. All right, you guys, let me pass out these gold pills. And if you will be able to join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Red Pill News Live, then I hope to see you there. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. And good luck, and God bless. Peace. Do me a favor and hit that like button. 968 likes on Rumble and 2,824 people watching. Come on, guys.
I don't know.